Brother Presley, if he will lead us in prayer this morning.
Can we take up an offering first?
Yeah, that'd be fine, Pastor.
Being the preacher that I am, let us pray. Father, we pause to thank you for the blessings of this day and also to ask your very special blessings upon our proceedings today. May everything that is said, everything that's done, be in a spirit that comes through good consideration, and may we, to the best of our ability, transact all the business of this day. Again, bless us as we share together. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good morning again. We welcome everybody here again. Everybody's come in since we started. The first thing on our agenda, we're going to call to order, and we're going to have the approval of the agenda. We have a couple of changes, gentlemen. Under the old business, we're going to add a 3 for Toby to talk about the condemnation ordinance and personnel board. No, I'm sorry, personnel board will be later. I wrote it in the wrong place. Number 3 would be condemnation ordinance. Then under new business, under C, we're going to have personnel board recommendation will be number 2. Are there any other changes, gentlemen? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, the next thing on there, we're going to approve the amendment of the minutes. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 minutes here. We've had 2 meetings since the packet went out. We've got the October 5th, the October 25th, and the October 26th minutes. Are there any changes that you feel need to be made?
October the 5th,
Okay.
on page 977. This is some clarification here.
Okay.
After discussion by the board, Commissioner Hoare made a motion to postpone the LS3P
Where you at? Okay. All right.
till information presented by Commissioner Jordan can be reviewed. Commissioner Jordan seconded the motion. Commissioner Hoare and Jordan voted for the motion. Commissioner Twine and Commissioners Jernigan and Owens voted against the motion. The motion did not pass by a majority vote. At that time, prior to that, there was some conversation by Mr. Jordan. He was talking about this LS3P contract and some of the things that there was deficiencies in. He had even addressed some of these deficiencies of that contract, and we discussed them, we acknowledged them. Then, Commissioner Owens made a motion to approve the LS3P contract as presented. Commissioner Jernigan seconded the motion. Chairman Twine and Commissioners Jernigan and Owens voted for the motion. Commissioner Hoare and Jordan voted against the motion. Motion carried by a majority vote. Did you sign that contract, Graham?
Yes, sir, I did.
You signed the contract that had the flaws in it that we discussed.
Yes, sir. But there was no motion made to change the contract. The
So we
the
approved
motion
it.
was made to,
So we approved the contract with the deficiencies in it.
I believe the Henry, you be part of this, you were going to get notified of the deficiencies and look at them and be
Yeah,
approved of.
I sent a list of the deficiencies that I noted to the county manager. I asked him to talk with our attorney about it, and he got with LS3P. They made corrections. Some they agreed with, and some they took exception, but they fixed a number of them, and the contract was modified.
So we did modify the contract. so the contract we voted on was null and void.
That would be correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that would be correct.
So you signed a contract that was not approved by this board.
Yes, sir, I did.
So what should we do?
We will stop that issue right now and contact them after the meeting and stop that contract at this point.
And if
Or
you,
either we'll open a motion to, after we finish the minutes, to fix
well,
what's there.
sir, I'd like to see that contract before it's voted on. I obviously know that it will be approved.
Have we got one?
but,
In here? Okay.
And I would think that our situations, we were criticized back in the spring about a contract that was made with Mr. Kim Oles by Mr. Raintree. I was aware of that contract. I was part of that contract. But after that contract was done, it did not come back to the board for a vote to read. Now, that was my problem. I should have requested that. That was my fault. But in the future, when we modify a contract, we should go through the formal process of bringing it back to the board and having it approved properly and follow proper procedure. This was done incorrectly. If you go back and look, and that's the best thing that's ever happened to Gates County, is sitting over there with that camera. Absolute best thing.
Okay.
It is that don't hide anything. I forget what I said. I forget what I do. That doesn't forget. So I was reviewing that this morning and reviewed Mr. Owen's motion, and it's exactly what was recorded here. So we did something that was illegal. Okay.
I would like to apologize to the board for that. We will make an effort to get that corrected right away. Y'all want to take a break with
By
that?
Uniform Commercial Code, anytime a contract is modified, is this not correct?
I was
It's null and void.
under the impression that, when the motion was made, that it was to check the concerns that Henry had. And evidently it wasn't,
Well,
so,
they were legitimate concerns. I don't have any problem with that. I realize that the contract's going to be approved, but there are proper ways to do things.
we want to make sure it's done right. That's exactly right. Would you like to take a motion so we have a copy of the contract brought over here?
Yeah, at the time I had a chance to review it. No, at our
we
next
can
meeting,
bring it
I
back
would
to the
like to
next
see
meeting.
it.
Kim, did you have someone working under a contract right now? Do you want, what do you want to do with
We need to take a break and see if we can't slow this up right now.
Well, I would like plenty of time to review this contract and was it,
We'll
obviously,
have the contract for you so you can review it before the next meeting.
that's very good, Graham, thank you.
All right, any other issue? Let's finish the, and then we'll go back to that. All right, any other issues with the amendments as presented?
Mr. Chairman, on October 11th, page 984.
Line 84.
That's the October 11th special meeting.
All right,
Got a typographical there. Said Commissioner Jordan made a motion to enter closed session as authorized by the general statute. That's 31811 A1, A4.
31811, right. You got that? All right, any other amendments to the minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented or as modified.
So moved.
All three? Wait a minute, all 3 minutes? Henry?
I'll make a motion that we accept the October 5th, October 11th, and October 26th minutes as presented with the noted correction.
What about the 25th?
Beg pardon?
We have a 25th and a 26th.
I thought I said the 11th. Okay, and 25th.
Okay. We've got a motion to accept the minutes on the 5th, the 11th, the 25th, and the 26th. Do I have a second? Second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. We'll take a quick adjournment right now to get the contracts and make a phone call. Take a quick break. I'm sorry. We'll get the contract. Now, gentlemen, you've got this contract in there. I think now's the time to go over the changes so everybody understand what they were. Henry, you want to do that? Most of them, your thoughts on it?
As I voiced in the meeting when we approved the contract, and I had concerns with some of the things that was omitted in the contract. And I'm not going to read every every item that I wrote up, but the first one had to do with the fact that LS3P basically provides the services to do all of their design without having to go to an outside vendor. And one of the services that was left out was civil engineering. And in order to obtain civil engineering services, it would cost the county 1.25% more, when we recognize that should have been a basic service that was provided. They should have their own civil engineering because, you know, that's part of preparations to even build a building. You got to have the landscape, you got to have the soil testing and so forth and so on. And so that was a concern that they corrected. And they also modified the contract to put it in there, civil engineering as a basic service. Number two, I felt it was contradictory because LS3P had a disclaimer statement stating that any failure on the part of the contractor to perform work in accordance with the contract document, that they were not responsible. But at the same time, you go to another paragraph and they said they had the authority to stop work, to identify defects and so forth. So I don't agree that they should have that kind of disclaimer when they have the opportunity to observe the contractor's work and their responsibility to observe the contractor's work. So that was an issue, and I believe that they made some modifications there. I don't believe we have LS3P's comments, but anyway. And the third item was basically a general list of contradictory items or items that were not sufficient for us to enter a contract, and one being that LS3P continually wanted to say that they will issue a certificate of payment once a phase of work is complete. Well, that's not what the general statute says. The general statute says they will issue a certificate of compliance. And throughout the contract, that was an issue. So they made some modifications there to say a certificate of compliance, because when you say that work is in compliance, you basically verifying that the design and plans that you've implemented are being followed. So that was corrected. And one of the last items, of course, like I said, there was about 8 or 9 items that I referenced, and I'm not going to go through all of them right now. But the last item on the page 3, it says paragraph 11.10.1 requires an initial payment at execution of this contract. What is it? There was nothing in there. Nothing was filled in. LS3P, my contention was that LS3P could have said, okay, give me all my money. And we have no leverage to say, we're going to hold you responsible for not, meeting deadlines or not monitoring the work or whatever that you should do. So LS3P went back and they filled that in. They said it was 0. They were not going to require the county to give them any money up front. So in a general synopsis, it's without reading item by item, those were the issues. And LS3P addressed all of them. A couple of them, I wasn't too happy with, but, I guess it was about as good as we're going to get. And so I didn't feel like I was going to challenge any further the items that they did not respond to. As a matter of fact, I don't have the ones that they did not. But that's basically what it is, and I think that the board wanted to move forward on it. They have been corrected. But that's the decision of the board.
Jack, what's your opinion?
Since they've been corrected, was Pitt involved with the corrections?
Toby and I had a conference.
And I see them highlighted in the document. Have both of y'all reviewed them since they've been?
To answer your question, Jack, Toby and I had a conference in my office, and then he made a phone call to the engineers.
Okay. And Toby, when the contract was revised, you looked it over?
Yes. Any more concerns, Jack?
Not at this time.
All right, well, Johnny?
Pitt, did you review that contract after it was modified?
I do not believe I did, no. We just went over the corrections and that I knew were going to be made, but as far as having what you had before you, I did not.
Did
have
not
that.
review it?
I did not.
Thank you, Pitt. In the paper right after this, and I guess some of you can know some of my concerns, there was a comment that says, governmental buildings are constructed every day, and those government entities follow certain procedures during design and construction projects. There are substantial reasons why you do that. There are statutes in place that require government agencies to do certain things in certain ways. They are there to protect the citizens. They are there to protect the project and make sure it's done right. By approving this contract, we agree to certain things. This is the beginning part. Ladies and gentlemen, you were told that you must follow this process. This is absolutely false. I presented that to the commissioners last Wednesday. You don't have to. You do not have to follow this. Contracting for design services. In North Carolina's General Statute, GS 143, 131, 143, 64, 31. And this is what it says. And this is generalities. I'm not going to read the whole statute. But there's another statute, GS 143, 64, 31, commonly known as the Minnie-Brooks Act. Referring to the Brooks Act, the federal law that GS 143, 64 is based on, which requires local governments to use a qualified-based selection process when hiring architectural, engineering, survey, or construction management at risk firms regardless of the contract domain. Now, what is qualifications-based selection? It's what this is, this $100,000 we're talking about. Now, when you do that, this is by Professor Aline Yowens at the UNC School of Government that I'm talking about, has written on this extensively. What if we are concerned about cost? Or what if we just don't want to use the QBS process? GS 143-6432 allows local governments to exempt themselves from the qualified-based selection process in GS 143-6431 for particular projects. This statute requires a local government to exempt itself in writing, but doesn't explain what type of writing is sufficient. Many local governments do this in a resolution. You may find a sample here, a sample, to show you how to do this. Others do it by letter to the firms or firms they are considering and keep a copy for the records and their auditors. If the estimated fee for the service, not the entire project, just the service, is less than $30,000, you don't have to give an explanation. So if it's less than $30,000, you don't have to say nothing. You just say, hey, I'm not going to do this. You just exempt yourself in writing. If the estimated fee is $30,000 or more, your writing, whatever form it takes, must also state the reasons for the exemption and the circumstances thereto, attendant thereto. So she asked this thing, what kind of a justification is sufficient? The statute doesn't say what kind of justification is sufficient, and the courts haven't weighed in on this yet. My advice is that you should keep in mind the basic principles of fairness, transparency, and getting the biggest bang for your taxpayers' buck, and especially when you're dealing with public construction. The additional principle of safety, of course. My guess is that local governments most often exempt themselves when they want to consider cost up front. And that seems to me to be a reasonable justification. So I told you, we are wasting about $100,000, well, all in all, about $130,000 that did not have to be done this way. This is not a project that requires a rocket scientist to do. This is a library. This is a building. It's not a manufacturing plant. It has sophisticated machinery that's attached here to go and has to be synchronized to make things work. This is a building. Only thing it has is information technology in there, basically, other than the building. So I ask you, how many people do you think in Gates County would actually be qualified to do this? You can exempt yourself. You don't have to do this. To me, it's just a terrible waste of taxpayers' money. Now, I've acknowledged to you, we need to do something with our library. We're in the process with this courthouse right now of doing something, trying to do something. There was 6 firms that we interviewed last Wednesday. I presented this to, I had told the commissioners, and I've told you about this months ago. Well, then it came up Wednesday. And I went immediately to my office because they questioned this and sent it to each of these commissioners here. Mr. Chappell acknowledged on Wednesday that I was right.
When he finishes.
Thank you.
He acknowledged that in the meeting. You can get the audio tape of that day and see that. He's right. Well, if you read the paper that came out yesterday, which I have it here, and I'm going to discuss that on the commissioner's comments. I called Mr. Bryant last night. That meeting took place on Tuesday. There must have been a divine intervention between Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't know what happened, but, you know, I don't know how you wake up from Tuesday to Wednesday and all of a sudden you know something. So anyhow, that's my problem. We're spending money that we don't have to do like this. We can still get $1.5 million, but we don't have to spend this $100,000 to get there. Don't have to. I have got, all you have to have is a certified engineering drawing. I know several engineers for $5,000 with a TurboCAD or AutoCAD that you can get you just about as detailed as you want on that on the design to present to the building right here. The design build will work, but you have to get your head out of the sand and be innovative and proactive and know how to do things and stay with the confines of the law. Do you think I want to get locked up? No, not at all. But I tell you what, I'm serious about saving taxpayers' money.
You finished, Tom?
I'm done
All
on
right.
this
Ken?
issue.
Kenny, have you got anything you want to say about, let's talk back to the contract that we were talking about before. Yeah.
I'm satisfied with the changes that have been made, and I have no problem with it. I'm ready to go.
All right, Toby, you want to address anything on this issue?
I would,
right now?
please. Commissioner Hoare brought up some points, and I'm not sure if we're confusing issues or what, but the exemption in the Minnie Brooks Act requires, is in reference to procurement of an architect or engineer. It does not exempt you from whether you have to have an architect or engineer. And since this item wasn't on the agenda and it's kind of come out of nowhere, I didn't bring the documentation to discuss this, and we can at a later date. But I will say in clear and emphatic terms that the exemption from the Minnie Brooks Act, and I don't need you to hold it up, I have that. Minnie Brooks Act exemption is whether you procure or not whether you need one or not, which are two totally different terms. I know what it says. I'm telling you what the answer is. The answer is you can exempt yourself from the Minnie Brooks Act in the procurement process, not on whether you need an architect or not. You're confusing two distinct terms. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chapel,
Okay.
Mr. Chapel, I'm not confusing that whether I need one or not.
Johnny, would you have a little respect for us too? I've been accused of not having respect for you. I would like you to have some for us now. I am the chairman of the board.
That's
And I would
correct.
ask you to let me run this meeting.
I will do that in the commissioner's comments. I'll be glad to
Thank you,
comment.
sir. I will appreciate that.
No problem.
I would like to apologize for signing this contract and causing this issue. I was under the impression that when we made the motion to accept the contract, it would cover the changes that Henry was interested in before it was signed, and it was. At this point in time, are there any other issues with this contract, or would anybody would like to move forward or not? If not, we'll put it behind us and move to the next.
I would like to have time to review it, the finished contract.
That's fine. Anybody else? Are there any other comments on this contract?
And
What-
I
what
and
is
I would
the-
also like Pitt to review it.
What's the pleasure of the board for the contract? Would you like to wait, or would you like to move forward? Henry?
Well, my initial vote was against the contract anyway. So, from a standpoint of whether or not everyone is going to understand it, I think that should be up to each commissioner. I wrote it, so obviously, my position is not going to change. But if the other commissioners want to move forward on it, I have no problem with it. If we want to wait, as Johnny has suggested, until Monday and do a phone con for approval, I have no problem with that. I'm with whatever the board wants to decide.
Jack?
Toby, can we have a phone conference on Monday over this contract and take a vote?
Yes.
Okay. I think that would be, from now to Monday, should give us sufficient time to review the contract, and I'll make a motion that we have.
Let me get comments from everybody, then we'll go back that point.
Okay.
John?
I find it comical, but anyhow, I'm not going to go through the formality of wasting time till Monday, regardless of what I say. Obviously, it doesn't make any difference. So we're headstrong enough that we're going to move forward regardless of the situation. So, let's do it now. I'm going to vote no, but
All right.
hey, you guys can do what you want to.
Kenny?
It's your baby.
Kenny? Any comment?
Considering Mr. Hoare doesn't have any comments, and he's already told us how he's going to vote, I might as well say move forward.
Well, you want to make that as a motion? Or Jack? Jack?
We through?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we've gone down the line, and there is no need for us to wait. So I make a motion that we approve the contract as amended.
All right, I've got a motion. I have a second.
Discussion. I'd like for Pitt to review this before we do that.
So we got a motion on the floor right now. I've got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion, a second. All in favor, raise the right hand. Other hand, Ken.
Right, I get it.
All opposed, raise the right hand like sign. All right, motion carries. All right, let's move on. The next thing on our agenda is the citizens' comments. We've got several here. I'm sorry it's taking so long. It's been my fault. I will take the blame for this issue. The first one on here is Ms. Shirley Grimes.
I'm Shirley Grimes, and I'm the delegate for the Senior Tar Heels Legislature for Gates County. We have 100 counties, as you know, and we have a delegate and an alternate from each county. And I represented the county in the meeting in October, which was the 4th and 5th, and our alternate is L.E. Smith. So these are some of the things that we did at the meeting, our last meeting for the year, which was in October. The Senior Tar Heels Legislature concluded a final meeting for 2011 with the election of a new officer, revised legislature priority, and advocacy information. In addition to the end of the year administrative duty, the Senior Tar Heel heard a variety of speakers who represent agencies that provide services for older adults throughout all counties in North Carolina. That is what we represent. The Senior Tar Heel meets 3 times a year, and during these sessions, the group is updated to the condition of the state budget and how aging services are affected. The final report of the year came from the State Budget Director, Andy Wills, who opened with an encouraging note. Wills stated that the North Carolina is posed for a fairly quick recovery. Wills added that although the state employment is still above average, the housing market is becoming more stable and businesses are posting gains. Will went on to update the group on Hurricane Irene recovery effort. The president declared 33 North Carolina counties as disaster area. Older adults in these areas will get some much-needed assistance in their recovery effort. Dennis Street was one of our speakers, and he's the director of North Carolina Division of Aging and Adult Services. And he announced that his agency received special funding to assist and provide services for older adults in the 21 most direct impact counties. Local Area Agency on Aging will use the fund to purchase state stable meals, provide outreach information and assistance, and help with home cleanup and emergency repairs. Street discussed other activities underway at the division that benefits seniors and their families. In North Carolina, there are more than 1.5 million caregivers with 3 in 10 caregivers is providing care to loved ones. And we had another speaker with Alicia Baker and Family Care Support Program Consultant, and Brenda Reese, Executive Director of High County Caregiver Foundation, added that the Lifespan Care Project is working to address the gap in services in North Carolina and build partnership with agencies such as the ARC of North Carolina, which serve people with intellectual and development disabilities and their families, as well as the MS Society. And at the end of this meeting, we elect officer. We have officer for every 2 years. And the officers were elected on the last day of the meeting. And a new officer was sworn in for their 2-year tenure. The incoming executive officers are Speaker John Thompson from Carteret County, Speaker Pro Tem Herbert Harris from Person County, Deputy Pro Tem Charles Rouse from Northampton County, and Secretary Mary Upchurch from Lee County. Speaker John Thompson stated that the next 2 years will bring challenging budget cuts and underfunding and defunding services. We need to keep an eye on core programs for older adults such as Medicare and Medicaid. And the Senior Tar Heel promotes citizen involvement and advocacy concerning aging issues before the General Assembly and assess the legislature need of older adults by convening a formal model after North Carolina General Assembly. It is during these forums that the Senior Tar Heels established priority for the upcoming year. And during this final meeting of this year, the Senior Tar Heel reviewed and selected to retain 5 priorities from last year, which we sent in a list of priorities each year. So out of the one we sent last year, we maintained 5 for the upcoming year with slight modification. And we're going to send that to the General Assembly for 2012. And the legislature priority for this year for 2012 will include restoring funding to sustain project care, maintain funding for the home care and community block grant by $5 million, maintain funding for senior centers, provide dental care for North Carolina adult special care population, and mandate pre-employment and random drug testing for employee of nursing and assisted living facility. And we always, every year, we always have, at the last meeting, we take food for the food bank. And in that food bank, we give the food to the most needed counties. And they were brought by each delegate and the alternate. And our food will be given, like I say, to the counties that need the poorest county that need the most food. And like I told you before, we have one delegate and one alternate from each 100 county. And I am from Gates County with L.E. Smith as the alternate. We meet in June, March, June, and October. We have 3 meetings a year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Grimes, would you make sure that our clerk gets a copy of that, so each one of us can get a copy of that report that you've got there?
Okay, well, I kind of mouthed through this, so.
She'll make copies. She'll make copies of it after the meeting sometime. I'll leave it
All
with
right.
her, and she'll get it back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next on the agenda, Mr. Earl Roundtree.
Hello, I'm Earl Roundtree from Sunbury. That's not Johnny Cash, but Earl Roundtree. Henry, I appreciate the work that you did. You know, everybody in this world has a little bit of a calling. Y'all probably wouldn't even admit that, but I think even I do. And Henry has a calling in life too, because he is a man for details. And so I think that we all, whether you agree or disagree with him, would have to appreciate the fact that he goes over this stuff and reads it and catches this stuff. And Henry, I appreciate it. While I'm talking about Henry too, Henry, there's 1,001 cliches that Earl Roundtree lives by, and one of them is that politics makes strange bedfellows. Had a strange phone call, and the reason I'm here to just say this to y'all, because y'all, the commissioners, are part of it. You remember back when we were doing the redistricting, and the 4 counties, including Gates County, endorsed the idea to having our own district, four-county district. I had a brief conversation with Cal back here. I didn't read my 4 newspapers this morning yet. Cal, actually, I remember seeing the headlines. Cal knows a little bit more about it than I do. But the Justice Department, I guess, has preliminarily approved our redistricting plan. And this comes to be very significant because of the fact that it is the Obama administration, and y'all all know politics. And it's not like that the Republicans are in charge or whoever. This is the Obama administration's Justice Department that has preliminarily approved it. And so it will probably go through. But one of the strange things that happened to me, a man in the state who is a very knowledgeable individual on many things, and county government being one of them. And I called him about a year ago to ask him a question. And I didn't hear from him. And I called him back. I didn't hear from him. So I said, well, I won't exactly say what I said to myself, but heck with you. And I didn't ever bother him anymore. Well, Monday, I come in and I had a phone call from this individual who left me a long message. And the first thing he did was he said, I want to apologize for not calling you back. And I thought to myself, this was a year ago. I know you're playing me for something. Well, the Democratic Party is going to sue the Justice Department or whoever they sue over this redistricting. And I come to find out, Henry, that they are going to use as an example of this perfect district that we all helped create, y'all did in the 3 other counties, as an example maybe in this thing. And I couldn't understand why this guy who got all friendly with me suddenly after a year and just wanted to talk and talk and talk and tell me what a great plan it was and how much he was behind me, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I finally found out he got to the truth that the Democratic Party was going to sue, and this was a perfect plan for them. Well, so much for that. We're not going to be able to do anything about it, but I just thought it was interesting because y'all were a part of it. But the thing about Jack being politics, making the strange bedfellows, and how we have to compromise so many times. I mean, it's important you got to compromise. And sometimes I'll compromise on some of my principles, and sometimes I won't, and I have to weigh that. And I believe very strongly that we had the 4 perfect districts, but I got to weigh on my conscience because I was signed off on the Republican plan for redistricting. I guess if I'm called in, Pitt, that I'm going to lose my memory or something. But I still think the plan is great, and I don't know how it's going to go. But I just thought this was real cute, talking about changing this. The day before this guy called me, this is from a leading Republican in the state. Dear Earl, I'm writing to you because you are one of the top 1% Republican donors in the state, and I would need your help. Now, I don't know whether, and I can't believe, Graham, that I am one of the top, but anyway, he put that in print, and so there you see my thing. The man that I was talking about had been an expert. I respect his opinion because he's got a lot of experience. He's had a lot of different jobs. Something that may be talked about, already been talked about among you, but it brought to my attention. And I don't know why he brought it to my attention, because we weren't talking about this. Someone had mentioned to me that you may want to video, audio, closed sessions. And I want to be on record to say, and I don't know whether or not that Cal Bryan would even mention this if y'all ask him, but he might have an opinion on this that you could ask him. And certainly you need to discuss this with Pitt very closely before you do, because the individual told me, and Johnny Hoyle's not going to like what I'm going to say, but he said the last thing in the world that y'all ever want to do, Pitt, is the audio and video closed sessions. Because but he told me, he says, I realize that the open meeting law is abused probably by every county in this state. And I think personally, I know for almost a fact that y'all somewhat abuse the law. Once you get in there and you shut the door, you talk about things that not necessarily, we all know that. He knew that. He was part of the system. But he says, do not audio and video closed sessions, especially when it's dealing with personnel. And as some of you know, or maybe all of you may know, this is my understanding, one of the major parts of that lawsuit in Berkeley County. I thought that lawsuit might have died, but it didn't. But it takes forever. Pitt knows this. He's from a family of lawyers, judges, and politicians, and it takes forever for something to go through the court system. And part of what they are looking for is to get the minutes from that meeting. I don't know. I don't think that meeting was audioed. But anyway, you don't want this, because if you're dealing with personnel and you get tied up in court, and we don't know what the courts are going to rule on this, but if it's on audio and video, you've got to give it to them if the court orders you. But if you only got it from word of mouth, you can always, and if you watch congressional hearings in Washington, D.C., you always got the ability not to remember. And when you get my age, that's real simple. But that's my speech to y'all today, but keep in mind when you get discussing this primarily about what y'all may want to think about in closed session.
Thank you, Earl. Ann?
Good morning. I'm Ann Askew of 216 White Oak Road, Ewell. First thing I wanted to bring up was this that was in the Herald was about the Buxton Group on Bell's plans. I guess the Economic Development Group of Hertford County, or is Hertford, Hosky, Hertford County, have hired this group called the Buxton Group out of Texas. And they're looking over at what is feasible for Hertford County, Hosky, or whatever. And I know this probably costs a lot of money. I just thought it'd be something maybe Gates County could look at. That they're looking at what would attract to Hertford County and Ahoskie. And there was things like Shoney's, Sonic, you know, different things, more normal, whatever. But I just thought it was very interesting about this Buxton Group coming to Ahoskie, Hertford County, and I just thought maybe that Gates County could look at it too. One other thing, I just want to applaud Toby, Graham, and Kenny, and Cal for the article on the new library questions and answers. I thought y'all did a wonderful job on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Wade.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Manager, and citizens of Gates County. I know that in the water department, you're going to be changing the billing to 2 bills, half the county, every month to a 2 billing cycle. And I would just like to say that I think it'd also be a great idea if we could get a drop box put in that would give the citizens 24 hours a day access to drop the taxes or the water bill in. And I would also like to commend y'all on the article about the library that was in the paper, and that I know the citizens don't understand that there are procedures and processes you have to go through, and there have been absolutely no dollars wasted on our library here for Gates County. And if it was, I'd be the first one to tell you. If we didn't need a new library, I'd also be the first one to tell you. I come and speak for the library because I do have citizens that do call me. They can't come here, they're at work. At the night meeting, they did come to some of the first public hearings we had and spoke in favor of the library. But at night, they're home with the kids doing homework. And, you know, y'all think people are not paying attention to what's going on. Even little kids pay attention to what's going on. You know, just a few years ago, we built a brand new ABC store here in the county. There was no petition going around against that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against liquor stores. I mean, because I know a lot of people, it's a service to the people. But, you know, kids, they look at that thing. They say, you know, here we can have a county full of drunks, but we can't even educate our kids, educate the people. You know, that's something to really think about. And I want all of y'all to go home and think about that, because kids pay attention. They do look at things. And I want to say sometimes, you know, some people can go to the mountains and pan for gold. And you can get 2 different kinds of gold. You can get the real thing, or you can get fool's gold. But, you know, stop paying attention to a lot of that fool's gold and pay attention to the real thing. Because if you pay attention to that fool's gold, you can get very disappointed sometimes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Wade. Mr. Terry Green?
Terry Green from York. Commissioners, everybody. I'd like to come in this morning and speak upon behalf of the library. I'm for it. I have 2 small children, 9 and 6 this month. It's educational. The county needs it. I'm not in favor of redoing the old courthouse to house the current library. In my opinion, it's a waste of money. I know some are not going to agree with that. That's fine. But like I say, it's educational. Wade touched on a couple of really good comments. As far as made a comment on the video, I think that's good. Unfortunately, in some aspects, it's not too good, because there are some that's going to be run through the mud. Like Wade spoke on the ABC store. You know, there wasn't a petition. There's a lot of people in the county that's unaware of the certain things. The room here this morning is practically empty. So there's a lot of people that need more education on the library. But make it short and sweet, I'm for it. We need it, as well as the Commerce Park. I'm glad it's proceeding. Y'all done a great job. Morgan, you're doing a fantastic job. Just keep on working together, and let's move Gates County into the future for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Next one on the agenda, Cal, you got your name on the agenda. You want to speak to us?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll be very brief. I'm just here for present our latest magazine. Just come back last Friday. We always try to make presentations to all 4 counties that we cover through Roland Chowan Publications, and I just wanted to give the commissioners an advance copy. I have a whole box over here that I'll leave here. Y'all are welcome to them. We're very proud of it, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Cal. I do like this magazine, though, Cal.
Thank you.
It's very informative.
Well, it's all local stories from our 4-county area, so that's what we want.
All right, thank you. Next, or last on our list, Miss Esther Laster. Welcome, Miss Esther. Don't drop them on your foot now.
To our County Manager Chapel, Chairman Twine, to the Board of Commissioners, and to the citizens and guests of Gates County. My name is Esther Lassiter, and I serve as the coordinator for the Gates Partners for Health. And I have good news. Back in June of 2011, the Gates Partners for Health had an opportunity to apply for recertification. Currently, in your board room, you have our original 2003 certification for the partnership. You also have our first recertification that was completed in 2006. In August, we received the announcement that we were recertified, and in October the 7th, an awards presentation was presented in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we did receive our certification, our second recertification that will run from 2011 to 2015. But I have some information sent to you also, Cal, that I have the same.
Thank you, Ms. Esther. For County.
Each year at the awards ceremony, the Governor's Task Force for Healthy Carolinians also present a William G. Allen Award. Now, this award is given to a distinguished Healthy Carolinian partnership who is applying for its second recertification or higher recertification, and who has demonstrated outstanding outcomes during the recertification process and period of 5 years. To my surprise, Gates Partners for Health's name was called, and we received the award. So, in our recertification process, there are 7 categories, and we received Stellar Award for 5 of the 7 categories. This award is a reminder that people and communities can work together to identify and solve common problems. So this award is to be shared with all of the boards, agencies, community organizations, faith-based communities, private citizens who have worked hard with the Gates Partners for Health or have contributed to the Gates Partners for Health. This is for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esther.
Diane's tired of laying over.
Be in paper. Cal likes to leave you in the boat. Ms. Esther, I would like you to make the choice of where you'd like this to hang. Would you like, where in the county would you like this to be hung?
The 2003 certification award and the 2006 first recertification is hanging currently, I believe, in the boardroom in the
Anywhere
other
else you would rather
building.
have it in the hallway or anything like that, make sure everybody sees it? I'll let you make the choice.
I will confer to our board, the Gates County board members of our partnership, and let them make the decision.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Esther.
I'll get back with you.
We do really appreciate what you do for our county. I've worked with you on this, with the farmers market, and, you're great for what you do with our county, and you do a lot for our county. A lot of it's not realized, but I do realize it, and I thank you deeply.
Thank you.
Ms. Laster, please choose a place that lots of people can see it. When it's hanging in our boardroom, there's probably a small number of people that actually see it. So pick you a spot where it can really be seen.
Okay, again, I will refer to that to our board members of the Gates Partners for Health, and I'm quite sure they will want to add to those two the 2003 certification and the 2006 recertification awards that are currently hanging in that room.
You let us know where you wanted that, and we'll make sure it gets there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esther. All right, next thing on our agenda, we're going to move along, department reports. First one, Ms. Sandy Pittman, she has a couple budget amendments.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sandy.
Got amendments 15 through 21 this morning we need to look at. Everybody have them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 15 is reallocating the budget within the planning department. They've had some vehicle repair costs that put them a little higher in that line than we expected, and we reallocated her budget to keep her in line there in all of her lines. Number 16 is the same thing for the water and sewer department. Again, we've had some repairs that were just unanticipated, and we were able to find the money within the operating budget to cover it. Number 17, this is to budget for the JCPC grant that we get every year. When we did the budget, we did not have final numbers, and we've gotten the final numbers since then. So this is to create the budget for that. Number 18 is to budget for the allocations that were approved last month for the Gates County Housing Committee. Number 19, this is to return grant funds that were received but not spent.
I mean, Reba didn't spend all her grant money? Where's she at?
It's shocking, I know.
You're shocking, I'm telling you.
And number 20 is the same thing for a different grant. Number 19 was for the divorce filing fees grant. Number 20 is to return unspent grant funds from the New Choices grant. And number 21, there was some surplus copper in the building that we've got for emergency management out back. And when you all approved the surplus for that copper, you approved putting it back into the emergency management budget. This is the amendment to do that. They've sold the copper. It was about $264, and this is the amendment to budget that revenue and to put it in Billy's budget to be spent.
All right, gentlemen, you have any questions on these amendments?
On number 19, DFF.
Divorce filing fees.
Okay.
You couldn't find enough people to use that?
and some child care funds to help them, but we couldn't find enough people who wanted to partake in that part of the service.
And Sandy, on number 16, that well site acquisition?
Yes.
Is that something that we're going to postpone, or?
Well, that's money that's budgeted, and for the last few years, we've budgeted that and put money in their fund balance to pay for that, and when the time comes and we finally acquire our next well site, because I believe that that's anticipated to be within the next year or two. And this reduces the amount that we've put aside. We've talked with Timmy about how much he'll need, and he thinks that that will still allow him the funds that he needs to take care of that.
And by well site, you're talking about a water tower?
Right, exactly.
He's talking about the actual land for the site.
The land? Okay. All right. That's all the marks I had.
Okay.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
Just a comment, and this is to Sandy. I really do appreciate you working on this form and getting this. Just one little thing, to highlight, tone it down just a little bit. I can't read the numbers in there, but I do commend you for doing this, because I think, and I hope these guys agree, this is a whole lot clearer than by far.
Oh, I think the changes made were good ones. I agree. But yeah, we can back that gray down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, or either just put the double lines. I don't know how you're doing this form, or which way, are you doing it on Excel each time, or what? Yeah, just, format the line with a double line, or
It is.
something.
It's
so
double
that-
line. If you look at it, it's got the double line. I'll just
Okay.
remove the highlighting.
Right.
And I think what it is the original's in color, and it's just being copied.
Yeah,
It's
right.
dark, so.
Yeah, I understand that, but I do appreciate it, and I think it's a,
Yep,
so,
I think
very
it was a
good
good
effort.
change.
All right, if any other comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept the amendments as presented.
I make a motion, we accept the budget amendments as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. We're gonna take another short break. Y'all can take one too. Tax Administrator, Ms. Renee McGinnis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Presley and I were talking earlier that if y'all are going to be taking these breaks, we think you should serve coffee.
Cool.
Or tea.
Mr. Presley, did you take up that offering to pay for the coffee?
We just wanted coffee, Reba. The first thing we'll go over is the collector's report, which I believe you all have a copy of. Really nothing unusual to report with that. The only thing that you may have noticed on this, we did have a little over $135,000 in discoveries this month. The biggest reason for that was due to our corporate utilities that we billed this month, which was in the amount of $135,466.84. There was a slight decrease from last year. Not sure what
What's
that-
that humming? Oh, okay, all right. I hear things humming sometimes.
It's not me. I don't think we can.
Can't close the door.
But there was a slight decrease in the corporate utilities this year. The value decrease was a little over $134,000, which dollars and cents wise amounted to $860.30. So not a big difference, but a slight decrease. Does anyone have any questions in reference to the collector's report?
That you were talking about, you said the, what did you call that again?
It's the corporate utilities.
Like
This is
the
like our
Dominion,
phone
REA?
companies,
Okay.
electrical companies,
Okay.
bus lines, that sort of thing.
Stuff
And
that's
the
in the town.
reason they are billed separately from our annual bills is they are actually valued by the Department of Revenue. So we receive those figures later on, usually after we do our billing.
So we didn't have anything in the budget for that?
No, they are part of your figures that I give you, yes. So that's not above and apart from what was originally
Henry thought you found
budgeted.
some money.
No, it's no extra money, I'm sorry. So, any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a few other things I wanted to mention. We have just recently uploaded our files to the clearinghouse for debt set-off, and we actually have a report here that I didn't send to you originally that kind of actually goes back to 2006 as to the number of letters that we mailed out, after mailing those letters out, as to what kind of response we received from them, what was actually sent to debt set-off, what we received from the state due to those set-offs. And I was going to pass this out to y'all for your review. And as you look at it, if you have any questions, if you'll just give myself and drop an email or give me a call, I'll be glad to answer anything you may have.
If I recall correctly, this was the gentleman that came in and questioned why his property was at a certain rate that was higher than a similar property.
Okay, you're going on to the appeal that we have.
Oh, okay, all right. We haven't got there yet.
Not yet, I'm sorry. I just wanted to update y'all on a few things before then. To let you know also, we possibly later on this month or the 1st of December may have 2 or 3 properties going to the courthouse steps with foreclosure process. We have, I believe, one more hearing before that actually happens, and what we will probably do is set a date where all 3 of those sales will happen at one time. And once we do get that information and whatnot, I will email y'all to let you know what, the figures are in reference to that and when that sale will be.
But we don't have to approve that sale before
No,
that? Okay.
no. Just like to keep y'all informed as to what the figures may be if the county ends up walking away with the property and so forth. Okay. Now to the appeal that was in your packet. This was a gentleman that had appeared before y'all in, I believe it was the September 19th meeting, and I apologize for not being here when he did. I was not aware he was going to be here that evening. We had talked he had talked with one of my employees prior to that. And I am going to pass out a map so that you can see the vicinity of the 2 properties I'm going to talk with you about. The property that the gentleman was representing is the property on the left-hand side of the map, and then on the right-hand side of the map you will see the other property that we are comparing it to. This is the one in question is a 6-acre tract. The current value on that tract is $34,600. There is a tract just down the road from it, I'll say within half a mile, it may even be as close as a quarter of a mile. That is a 6.52 acre tract. They're both woods land. The value on that second tract is only $13,562. In going back and researching the records, the tract in question has a site value on it, the other does not. I went back in previous records. I cannot find any reason as to why that second tract would not have a site value on it. In my opinion, it needs to. It's less than a 10-acre tract. And also, in reviewing the value of the other tract, this is a very low piece of woods land. It's located on Bosley Road. I don't know, Mr. Jordan may be familiar with the area, but it is a very low tract, and I know personally that when we have big rains and whatnot, the homes that are right there beside this tract are always flooded. There's water standing in the yard. There is also on this tract a ditch that runs through part of the tract. What I would recommend, the current landscape code on the tract that's in question is fair. I would actually recommend lowering that to a very poor landscape code, which would actually bring the value of that tract down to $19,600. The other tract that we have compared it to, I would recommend putting a site on that with the landscape code of very poor as well, which would actually increase the value of that tract to $20,482.
When you say a site, you're talking about a home site?
This is, yes, or the potential of a site.
Is this land properly to have a home site on it? I mean, we're talking about...
Well, and that's why
poor
I'm saying
property.
I would put it in very poor. We do make adjustments if property does not perk or whatnot, but we have to have proof from the health department that it would not perk. If either of these landowners would choose to do that, we would take that action at that time.
I mean, that would bring them to what they should be.
That's my feeling, and I had reminded Mr. Smith or let him know that I would be bringing this up today, and he chose not to be here. I went over with him what I was going to discuss with y'all, and he was pleased with that, so he chose not to be here this morning.
The change that would be made to the other property, the comparison property, you had a dollar figure of 20,000 something?
It would be increased from $13,562 to $20,482.
And the actual change that you're recommending that would create that is what? Is that landscaping or?
Well, it would be a landscape code of very poor. It would put both.
No, I'm talking about the one that's going to increase. What is it you're changing on that one?
The only thing we're actually doing is putting a site on that.
Site.
So the one that's 34.6 would be what?
The one that is 34.6 would be reduced to 19.6.
The effective date of when you would make a transaction like this?
Well, we would do it for this year, for 2011.
Okay. To be corrected as if it were January 1? Or?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other one the same?
Yes.
Increase as well as decrease?
What we will do is a release on one property and a discovery on the other.
Yeah. I want to go back to that day and ask the county manager his opinion on something. You know, that gentleman was probably his first time ever coming to a commissioner's meeting, and he brought this topic to the podium during the citizens' comments. Is there a particular way you think we should handle that type of issue a little differently? I mean, you don't want to stop somebody in what they're here to propose, but...
If I had realized he was going to be here that night, I would have brought it up with my initial, I can't remember why I was even before the board that night, but I would have brought it up with that. I did not realize he was going to be here.
If you had been here in the audience
Yeah, I was not here when he presented.
But if you had been, how would we, what's the best way to address
Well,
it?
I would say in an ideal world, the individual would have contacted Renee or the clerk to the board and gotten on the agenda so that Renee could have been prepared and ready to speak on it intelligently. I think the most important thing is that we've identified an error and we've corrected it. So at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Okay. All right.
I believe it was also mentioned by him about a couple of adjoining properties that were not valued at very much, that even had homes on them. But those two properties there are not really comparable properties. Both are just sites of less than an acre, and the homes on them are not in the best of condition, so they're really not comparable properties. But the other that you have that I'm recommending we increase the value on certainly is.
Do you need action on this?
Yes, it does need to be approved by the board or disapproved.
All right, you've heard Renee explain this. Any more questions for Renee on this issue? If not, we'll entertain a motion to allow her to make the corrections.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we correct the assessed values of the two properties as presented by the county assessor.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, Mark.
The only other thing I did want to mention to y'all, I am in the process of reviewing land use properties. These are properties that are under the use value program, either due to the fact that it's woods land or agricultural land. And in the process of doing so, we will be sending out a lot of letters asking landowners to update applications where we may not have had an application in for a number of years, or where the property is maybe transferred to the children due to a death in the family or whatnot, and an updated application was not received. So if you hear folks out talking as to why am I getting this, what is this, which we will try our best to explain it in a cover letter, but sometimes that doesn't quite do the job. That is what we're in the process of doing. And to also let you know, due to this audit with the use value applications, we may find situations where we may actually be going back and billing for deferred taxes where we find that properties no longer qualify, which is going to create a bill for the taxpayer. So just to make you aware that you may be hearing some comments from the citizens, that may be receiving letters and as to what's going on. And if you have any questions in reference to that and want a better understanding of the program and whatnot, please contact me and I'll be more than glad to go over that with you.
Okay.
Any questions?
Renee, how about the car booting process? I haven't had time to do any more.
I'm right there in your boat, Johnny. I'm right there with you. I think it's Mr. Black that actually owns that business, and I have not talked with him in reference to it.
And also, the Commissioner of Revenue and just about every one of them, Isle of Wight, Southampton, they are in that process, which I read that little excerpt. I forgot who it was. Was it the government?
Chris McLaughlin with the Institute of Government.
There again, obviously, I know by looking through these, there's no doubt that is the serious problem that we have. And it's not necessarily, the real estate is some too, but it's really is the automobile thing is the problem that we really.
And with that being said, I was at a meeting recently where we were discussing the system, the joint DMV system.
Right.
And that is, from what I'm understanding, there's no ifs and ands about it. It will be going online July 2013. Yeah. And more than likely, our first involvement with it as far as processing and whatnot will probably be in the March to April time frame of 2013, which allows us the time to get the data together to get to DMV, where those July renewals, it goes out with those July renewals. Mm-hmm. So over the next couple of years, we're going to be doing a lot as far, and that will certainly make a difference with that situation.
So, until they get to 2013, is that, and I can't remember what the statutes say, but is it a 10-year statute of limitations? Is that going to apply so that we're going to be dropping these off or what?
Well, now these as that we currently have on the records, the statute of limitations will, it's my understanding, unless something has changed, which I will be in a meeting next week where we will learn more about exactly what's going on. It's my understanding that some of these will be left with the tax department.
Regardless of time frame.
Right, which I'm assuming the statute of limitations will still apply to, but I'll be able to address that more after this meeting that I'll be in this upcoming week, where we'll learn a little bit more about the process and whatnot and how it's going to work. And I think, and some of you, I'm sure, because I know I have received the registrations from DMV that's now the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's not just your little card. That is what the bill will look like. Right. It's just that in July 2013, it will also include the county taxes. Yeah. So what happens with that, when you go to renew your vehicle license plate, you not only will be paying the state fees for that plate, but you also will be paying your county taxes up front at that point.
That should take a lot of problems away at some point in time.
It's going to take some away eventually. It's going to create some to start with. So. Oh, yeah. Anyway, but I should be able to answer more questions and have some information for y'all at the next meeting on that.
Well, obviously, and I know Pitt or anybody is, it's about liability, and we're concerned about that, but in the state of Virginia, what they're actually doing, now how does that relate to the state of North Carolina? But being proactive and innovative in getting this thing done, because we're missing a great opportunity here to do this. Now-
Well, and that, I agree with that, but according to this, to the government, they're
Yeah,
not really
I know they're scared of
recommending it,
liability.
so.
Right.
Anyway, but any other questions in reference to anything? Okay, and I believe you had one request for refund in your packet, and I also believe you had some on the table today, and
But
Ms.
this is
Harrell.
where we give money back, right?
Yes, this is where we give money back, I'm sorry. We do have that occasionally, so we hate to, be the ones that always take it. We like to give some back occasionally. But Ms. Harrell will go over those with you.
Thank you, Renee. Gwen, you
Good
get the
morning.
job, you get the job of giving money and what's back, right?
That's right. Collecting and then giving back. The first one was in your original packet in the amount of $171.87. On the back of that refund request, there was a letter from the taxpayer requesting the refund. And the reason for the refund, the plat on this property was recorded in February 2009, and we picked up the incorrect acreage from that plat. The total acreage was 74.26, and that's what we picked up and used, but only 68.34 acres was actually in North Carolina. The remaining 5.92 acres was in Virginia. So we are requesting a refund of $171.87 for that portion of the 2010 tax. And as you see at the top of that request, we will be applying that to the 2011 taxes.
What was the total assessed value of all of it?
No, we don't have that total value.
I guess what my question, obviously, all of this is not cleared land, or some is valued for a site or whatever. It just seems that for the 5 acres, I'm just wondering if that was the site portion of the land, or just what?
It was cleared acreage that's in Virginia.
The cleared acres. Is the home in North Carolina?
The home is in North Carolina.
Okay. I'd like to see that total figure just for information.
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to email that to you after the meeting, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
If you could email it to all the commissioners.
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
All right, next. You want to act on these individually?
We can do all
How-
of these.
Commissioner,
And
Would y'all rather act on these individually or look at them all?
Well, I think we should act on this one individually.
Okay. All right,
It's a little unusual.
you've got a request for refund in front of you. Have a motion to accept the request for refund and refund the money.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
All right.
The next one is in the amount of $1,166.33. As you can see, Bank of America Tax Services paid this out of escrow for this taxpayer, and the taxpayer had already paid those 2011 taxes. Therefore, we need to send this overpayment back to Bank of America Tax Services.
Any questions on this one, gentlemen?
For some reason, I didn't get a copy of that in my package, but anyway.
It was on the table.
It was on-
This one's on the table,
It's
isn't
on
it?
the table. Okay. So then, Paul's here.
Gwen or Renee, I noticed there's 3 of these all to that same banking firm. Is there any way to keep this from happening? Or,
A lot of times what happens in cases like this is the property is sold and the previous mortgage company, they pay the taxes and then all of a sudden we have the same payment coming in from the next mortgage company. And it's, when it comes to dealing with the mortgage company payments, and you'll probably be seeing more of this as through the end of December as new mortgage company payments come through, but we have this happen quite a bit.
okay.
Pitt, you got anything, have any idea on this either?
No, it's a problem for our office too, but taxpayers need to be more vigilant themselves. If I had a $1,100 bill and I knew I had an escrow, I don't think I would write a check to the tax department. I'd check with my escrow company first, and that obviously is not happening. So some miscommunication. And like Renee said, a lot of times when someone refinances, you've got 2 escrows. You got the old one and the new one. But it should be up to the individual citizen to make sure. I would miss $1,100. I have my budget.
All right, y'all want to act on all this one, or you want to act on all 3 for the Bank of America? All right, go ahead and go over those.
Okay.
Gwen.
The next one in the amount of $1,292.18. They had actually already paid this one in another, they send a check and they will have multiple taxpayer items on that, included in that check, and they had already sent that earlier in October, and then they included it again later in October on this one. So we would just need to refund it the
Well, this is
second
why Bank of
time.
America having so much trouble up there.
Okay.
All right.
Any questions on that one? The next one in the amount of $1,438.88. This is another one where the taxpayer had already paid the tax bill, and we just need to refund Bank of America.
Do y'all send the bill to the, I know the bill goes to Bank of America for mortgage too, right?
Yes,
Plus
sir.
it goes to the home or the owner.
It goes directly to the mortgage company.
Does the
who'll
owner
be
get a
paying.
copy of it? I mean, why would he pay it if he gets a copy of it?
The owner does receive a copy of it, but their bill states that a copy has been sent to the mortgage company for payment.
Okay, but evidently he paid it anyway.
I know this particular one involved a property that was sold.
Okay. Frank Cross. That's the property we're talking about, Sunbury, right? Okay. All right, the 3 from Bank of America. Are there any questions on any 3 of those? We'll entertain a motion to accept the request for refunds as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to accept the request for the 3 to Bank of America Tax Service Corporation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, next.
Okay, the next one in the amount of $155.61. This would be to Wells Fargo Home Mortgage Services. As you see, Mr. Godwin's office had prepaid $155.61 on that, probably at a closing, and then Wells Fargo paid the full tax bill amount. Therefore, we need to refund them the portion that had already been paid on the bill.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we refund.
All right, we've got a motion that we refund this to Wells Fargo. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, next.
The next one is the $143.30 amount, and this was paid by a taxpayer, actually by her son, and the taxes were overpaid, and under reason for refund, you'll see the amount paid less the actual tax bill for this parcel. The difference would have been on something else that they paid at the same time on that bill. Therefore, a refund would be of $143.30 because there are no other taxes due from this taxpayer at this time.
Gwen, do you know if this person came to the window and paid, or did they mail the payment in?
I could check on that. I did not make a note as to whether it was mailed or paid at the office.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, any other questions on this one? Entertain a motion to accept this request for refund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay.
Okay, and the last one you have is in the amount of $109.38, and that was paid by the taxpayer. As you'll see, under reason for refund, we received some debt set-off funds back in April of this year. That paid most of this tax bill, and the taxpayer also later in the year paid that total tax bill, so it just made an overpayment of the $109.38. This taxpayer does not owe any other taxes at this time.
This was on a vehicle, right?
Yes, sir, vehicle. Mhm.
Any other questions?
I guess this is a question for Renee. In the beginning of the fiscal year, we budget for revenue of X millions of dollars. We also budget for refunds. When we get these overpayments in, it appears that we should have an overage in revenue, if we're going to take this out of our budgeted refund money. I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that, are we counting this overage as revenue so that when we take it out of our budgeted refund that we're not kind of skewing the numbers, if you will?
No, it's balancing itself out with our figures now. With finance, I think Sandy would have to address how it's handled on the finance side because it's actually two different line items, and you've got really basically receivables and then the revenues, the settlement still. That's all revenues. But it balances itself out as far as the numbers that we have, because we're putting it in one place and taking it out another.
Right, so again, if I budget revenue of $5 million, I should expect to see $5,200,000 or whatever in these overpayments. So we would show up, in overage, so that it doesn't look like that, we budgeted too little, if you will, on the refunds, or make that data look skewed.
So do we have a contra account?
Yes, it's on your revenue report that you did each month. It's, I believe, the second or third line on that revenue report.
And the overpayments are being recorded in that one?
The overpayments get recorded in the revenue line when the refunds come out of the refund line. At the end of the year, they net each other out on the financial statements. You'll see that those numbers are a net number of those two lines.
All right, gentlemen, this request for refund, any more questions on it? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the request for refund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Have a good day. All right, the next thing on our agenda is Ms. Morgan Jethro, our planner.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mr. Lawrence Riddick has chosen not to serve on the Gates County Board of Adjustments to replace Ms. Paulette Wester, which he indicated via letter, so therefore I have a vacancy that needs to be filled. The term will expire June 30th, 2012. I currently do not have anybody on the board from Sunbury, Core Peak, or Hobbsville.
Gentlemen, I talked to, when Mr. Riddick was appointed, we had another name that was nominated, Mr. David Boyce from Hobbitville. I talked to him this week. He's still interested in serving on this board, and I had him fill out one of our appointment applications. Y'all have received that this morning. I'm sorry I didn't get it sooner, but we got a missed page. And at this point, I'd like to, we need to open nomination for this. Are there any comments on this before we have a motion to open nominations for this board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to open nominations.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to open nominations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, this,
I would like to make a motion that we do appoint Mr. David G. Boyce to this appointment. I have known David for, I guess, 45 years probably. I used to ride to work with him, very familiar with his skill sets and his mentality of competence, as I would say, very level-headed, and I think he would be a very good addition to this board. And so I would like to nominate Mr. Boyce.
I'd like to second that nomination. I've known David for several years, and I see him on a daily basis. He come to me several months ago, and after he retired, and wanted to try to serve on something for the county. He had plenty of time that he would like to serve for the county, so that's why I nominated him the first time. So I'd like to second that nomination. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we close the nomination on the said one name.
All right, I've got a motion that we close nominations. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion made. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're, have one name nominated for the Board of Adjustment, Mr. David G. Boyce. Let's see, all we need is to vote on that, right? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. You'll contact David?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that this is a very good example of having the application process in place. I've known David for 30 years, but, you know, down the road, we will have commissioners who won't have that experience, and it'll really serve to help them make their decision.
Thank you, Jack. I think it's a very good idea myself. The next, we're gonna move on down our agenda. We're going into old business. Our county manager has 3 items for us, and we'll start with Water Department billing cycle.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few meetings ago, the board asked that Timmy, Renee, and myself begin to determine a water payment schedule that may be more conducive to the environment in which they work. Timmy and Renee have come together on a plan, have consulted with Daphne to ensure that it will work, and this is what you have in front of you. And if there are any questions, Timmy, Renee, or myself will answer them.
So basically, you're going to a two billing.
Timmy will come up.
Timmy, come up here in a minute or two, just kind of go over it for us, make sure we're on what you're looking at.
My first question is, we start the billing cycle on December 30th. We have Group 1, which is actually Cycle 1. And we have the cutoff, if it's not paid, the water's cut off on the 17th of January. My question is, when would our next billing cycle be if it was regular? Is this the regular billing cycle for right now?
That is actually Group 1 billing cycle, is how our cycle is set up currently. The whole county emulates Group 1.
Okay, so it would not be a surprise to any of the citizens if they didn't pay their bill by the 17th that they would face cutoff, or the 16th, they would face cutoff on the 17th.
That is correct.
So we're following the normal cycle for the first cycle of
Yes,
this new
sir. implementation.
Okay.
And billing cycle 2 is still the exact same time frame. It is just jumped.
2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks after. It's the same time frame. They still have the same amount of time to get the bills paid. The only thing that changes is, I believe it's,
Well, it's basically 9 days differential.
They're gonna have
right,
a
9
large-
days difference, but they still have their 15 days for payment.
But
From
they're
the
gonna
time
have-
they receive the bill to the time it's due, and 16 days to cut off.
Right, but it's gonna be a little bit larger than it would normally be because it's the first, second billing cycle. Is that right?
It wouldn't, I don't think it'd be different.
First month.
I don't think it'd be different for the first month, Tim, because they're all read on the same day, correct?
That's correct. The only thing that's changing, we're still reading the meters starting reading the first business day of the month. You're still gonna have 30 to 32, just depending on how it falls in the calendar day of active days within that meter reading period. The only thing that's changing is when the bills are mailed out. It's splitting the county in half, so you'll have half the traffic at the windows on the 15th, 16th, and then again on the 24th and 25th.
Renee?
The first month, that second group that goes out, there will possibly be a little more time frame.
A little more water.
That's
Well-
just for transition.
Well, it won't really be any more water because the bills have been read. All it is their cash flow will improve by 9 days. That the customer's cash flow will improve by 9 days. That's the only thing that happens, and it only happens the first month with the second group.
To half the citizens, not the
That's
whole
right.
county.
That's
Right, just
correct.
half the citizens
Well,
will
That's
be.
correct.
Again, that second group, they're gonna experience a little higher bill than.
No.
No, the
Because-
meters read at the same time.
Commissioner
All
Jordan,
they're doing is holding the bills in.
Commissioner
They
Jordan, the
just-
entire
they just
county
hold
is
their
read at
bills.
one
So
time.
they're basically, we're just giving them more time to
No,
pay.
I'm due on the 15th, and you get until the 25th to pay yours. But the next time you,
And again, that's only for the first
Yeah.
month, then everyone would have equal amount of time.
That's correct.
It's a one-time event.
Correct.
That's correct.
You've got half the county, is that east and west, or?
Where I
do it by
broke it
book?
up was by population numbers. We have 5 billing cycles, 5 books of meter reading books. Book 2 and 3 are our largest books, so I've combined them into cycle 2. Book 2 and 3 are gonna be cycle 1. That's our largest groups.
Okay.
And book 1, 4, and 5 will be cycle 2. And that's gonna split our population as far as meter readings in half, close to half.
On the cycle 2 bills, and you're talking about books, and I know what you're talking about there, but just so we'll know, what areas of the county are in the
Okay, I'll
books?
go through them. For cycle 1, it's gonna be book 2 and 3. That's kind of your Gates, Drum Hill, Boomtown area. Book 3 is your Core Peak and Northern Sunbury area. Book 1 is your Ewer/Gatesville. Book 4 is your southern part of Sunbury, Folly, into the edge of Hobbsville, and Book 5 is your Gatesville, Carters to the edge of Hobbsville.
It looks like a lot of thought has gone in this, and looks like a pretty good plan to me. It'll make it a lot easier at the window, won't it, Renee?
It should split up at the window. The biggest difficulty I'm going to face as far as in the field is by splitting the lockouts. Instead of being able to go ahead and knock it out in 3 or 4 days, I'm going to do a couple days this week. Hopefully the numbers will come down, so maybe I can get it all in a day and a half as far as lockout and then the reconnects coming in. But it's going to break up my work week and my schedule some.
Okay.
So maybe if this transition goes smooth, we'll bring back to the table about going to bi-monthly reading, and then take this same schedule and bill out every other month, or either take one cycle and bill 1 month, one cycle the next month. This will be a good transition and step period towards that direction.
The physical bill that goes out, is it, I get a yellow card?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. So it looks entirely different?
It comes in an envelope, it's 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper.
Okay, it's on white paper.
With a tear-off bill stub.
Okay. All right. I was just, the reason I was asking was, I didn't know if there might, once you get this billing going, or maybe even in the beginning, if there was something even, wouldn't mean a lot to the citizen, but when they came to the window, if there was something about one billing bill versus the other that was prominent, would that help at the window any at all? I know
It
you're
will,
looking-
it'll be a due date.
A due date, okay, I was
That'll be
thinking,
the due date.
I was actually thinking color or
I
something
think he's meant like a
that.
white paper and a yellow paper for the different cycles.
I mean, just, you know,
Well,
it would-
colored paper costs more.
I do think it probably would be a good idea, at least for the first couple months, and Timmy and I really hadn't talked about this part of it, but maybe to put a insert in those bills, even if it's a third of a sheet, in a different color, to try and call attention to the customers that are gonna be on that different billing cycle with a different due date.
Right.
So that they will hopefully pick up on that versus.
You say that'd be cycle 2, right? The actual different billing date would be
No,
cycle 2.
cycle 1.
Cycle
Oh, yeah,
one.
cycle
No,
2.
cycle two.
Cycle 2.
I think, looking at the way you guys got this mapped out, it looks like it's going to be a lot simpler than I might have had envisioned it, so that's good. I think the insert, maybe on a color in the billing or something to just alert the citizen that your due date is going to be this going forward, might be helpful.
That was my concern, and I was getting ready to mention that be sure to put some notifications, say probably this month or certainly in December bills, letting people know we're going to do some changes, and to continue that, and probably the colored paper would probably be something that might grab their attention a little bit too.
Had intentions of advertising it, maybe doing a small, like a third leaf insert, letting them know that there would be some changes. But the joys of these changes, the cycle 1 will see no effect.
Right.
Cycle 2 will see no effect against them, only in their favor.
Right.
So it's not like we're changing their date where they're going to get cut off because they didn't realize their cutoff date or their bill was due earlier. They're actually gaining more time.
But anytime you do a change, some people are going to get mixed up to some degree, and you need to at least try to
And
let them know ahead of time.
That's fine. There'll be an insert, but I mean, they're not going to get a surprise. Oh no, my water bill's due earlier.
Yeah.
That's one of the joys of how this was set up, where it doesn't negatively affect anyone. It actually helps.
Good plan.
Well, the thing about it is customer behavior, and it's gonna take a couple of months, or it might even take 8 months, and actually plotting that activity and watching what customer behavior is in reaction to this, because people in the second group, I don't think immediately you will see unless you do really push home that point, because some people would go in there and pay the bill early, so you're not going to see that when they know that until they are really in tune with that date. So it's going to take a little process here, but this is at least from a paperwork process and a window, is extremely important, because I can tell you, it was a pyramid.
Tim,
Okay.
could we get something on the website too, up there, notice or something?
Let's see where.
I'll work with Ms. Diane on
Are we ready to implement this? That's the next question. Are we ready to implement this?
As far as billing goes, all it is a stroke of a key to separate out, being we're using our existing books for cycles to, on the 30th, which nothing will change for cycle 1, that would be book 2 and 3, and just split them out and send them. So we can implement this, I would say January 1.
standpoint is any issue. I think the biggest thing as far as implementation is going to be public relations.
If we implement it now, then y'all have one billing cycle before it goes into effect to send a notice out to let them know it's getting ready to happen. Is that right?
Yeah, if
And
we can-
let them know what cycle they're in.
Let them know what cycle they're in, and to be honest with you, it'll only go out in cycle 2. Because cycle 1 will see no change, no variation, their bills, no difference.
You may want to even have something in there that says you're receiving no change, because if I get one and you don't get one, there may be some confusion on, did you get skipped, or or what?
Let's not have no.
Yeah, I would put one in that says, you're in whatever group, you will see no change.
Okay.
And
All right,
just
so
to
we
make
all
sense.
ready to implement this?
Ready to implement it. I'd like for you to vote on it to give us the ability to go ahead and do those inserts and get preparations for maybe trying to start this December 30th.
I make a motion so moved that we start this billing process immediately per se, the water department and the tax department, water department billing process.
All right, we have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
A lot of seconds. All right, we got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, you have the authority to get it started.
Thank you. And I do have one more thing. We've spoken about a drop box, talked with Toby and met with Renee, and Wade's gone, but we picked out what we want, kind of a discussion whether to move forward and as to where the location. Our thought so far was the traffic island right out here in front. On the stoplight or caution light end of that island, if you stick it on that island, there's no parking on the street side, on the front side, so you can circle, get out of traffic, and as you're driving out, the drop box be on your driver's side door.
You talking about on the street side, on the?
Actually, on the end of it.
Pointing towards the caution light. This is something that's come up in several meetings over several years. Renee, she speak for herself, but I believe she supports it. Timmy supports it. I support it. I think it's a customer service thing that we should offer our citizens, and which can also help reduce the number of people that are coming to the window. If they're simply coming in and can pay their water bill without even getting out of their car, that's got to reduce the number of people going to the window, I think is a good idea.
Have y'all got any prices of quotes on doing this yet?
600-ish.
600-ish for the box. That's a dual door or a dual drop slot, one for tax, one for water. That's for the box as well as the stand. We could handle digging out, doing the cement pad, and bolting it and mounting it. And that's less than a $30 install.
Where's the location again?
The little traffic island that separates the road from the parking lot right out here in front of the courthouse.
Okay.
Oops. Majority of the folks that come in actually turn in on the your end and circle around. Well, that traffic island's long and thin. On the end of the traffic island, on this end,
Gotcha.
there's no parking in the driveway, so you can't have a car blocking the driveway. There's no parking against that island past the island. So at any point in time, you can circle through the parking lot and drive back out towards the street, and right on your driver's side door, you can stop, you can drop it, never get out of your car, as well as you're blocked from traffic. You will not, you won't put yourself in harm. And it's the ability for your senior citizens, your elderly that might have a little bit harder time walking, they can make their drop without even getting out. And it also, when we go to pool, whether it's Daphne with the water or someone with tax, when they go to pool the drops, they'll be standing between parked cars, so it's not really an exposure issue for them as well.
If that's where we think is the best place, and I'm okay with that, it might be smart. I think we would lose 2 parking spaces. On that island, on the street side, I think you can park there currently. If we were going to do this, the person pulls up there, puts their money and their bill stub in that box. They're going to need to be looking back to the left to pull out, because they're going to be flat with the traffic, not like this. It might be smart for us to yellow those 2 parking spots off, and at the same time call this employee parking in the back. But
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you just said. I think you've actually hit on a bigger issue that hopefully at the December meeting we'll be able to talk about, which is petitioning the town to rework some of the parking and maybe add some sidewalks in front of these buildings. I think that's a serious issue that you need to consider and see if you're willing to take a stand on making a recommendation to have some of those things done. And I think if they did those kind of renovations, that would be something we could incorporate.
good.
I like that, Timmy. The only problem I see with that, and it comes from an audit type standpoint, he said, she said type deal. I dropped it in the box. It had an envelope and it had money in it. You open up the envelope and somebody forgot to put it in there. So I'm worried about that a little bit, but.
Let me go a little bit further. That we discussed there will be some form of disclaimer. For one, we're not held responsible if you use the night drop box.
Right.
And for two, no cash deposits or cash drops accepted.
And I think it will clearly say that we are not honoring anything until it's received inside the building.
Right.
While this, we're trying to make a convenience for the citizens, I think we need to think about the fact that, when we get the water bill, most citizens mail their water bill in. So, I'm not sure that many of the citizens, when they do bring it in, some of them that just may be their regular routine visit, they just want to come down and just speak with the clerk or whatever, because you already have an option of not coming. Some may be pressed for time, but you may not receive a lot of less traffic because, for whatever reason, people come in.
I mean, this is.
And I think Renee wants.
Well, before Renee, if I could, Renee, I think in addition to reducing the traffic, it's going to expand the hours of operation to virtually 24 hours a day. Now, people can only pay bills, excluding the mail, from 9 to 5. This would open it up to where people can pay their bills virtually 24 hours a day. So I think even if you don't reduce the numbers coming to window, which I personally believe you would, you still are going to expand the hours of operation for people to pay that work out of town or work a non-routine schedule. I think there's going to be tangible benefits, is my opinion.
Well, I'm not saying that there won't, but you may not, because you can't overlook the fact that you've got the option of mailing in. I can't recall coming in to pay a water bill. You mail it in when you get ready. And so, the citizens that want to come down, they're coming to town anyway, and they just want to stop by.
And they still have the option where they can walk on in and pay, and it's not as much to cut down traffic at the window, although every one person that uses it and does not come to the window helps with traffic. It's a convenience. It's another option for the citizens to use if they don't feel like if their knees are hurting that day and it's elderly and they don't want to walk all the way up the handicap ramp and there to pay, they can circle right around. It's options for the citizens to utilize.
Renee, you got something to add?
One thing, too, in this situation, when we were in the office here at the courthouse, the side door remained unlocked because of central dispatch. And especially the night before cutoff day, I cannot tell you how many envelopes under our door where people would come in through central dispatch and just slide their envelopes under our door. Whereas here in this building, they can't do that because they can't access anything.
Well,
And it would, there's no doubt in my mind that the line that we see down the hall on the 16th and whatnot, some of those people were probably those people that were putting those envelopes under the door and getting on where they had to go. So I think it would help to some extent. I'm not saying it would be great volumes, but we're not talking about an astronomical amount of cost, and I think there are some people that it would certainly would help.
I just don't want us to be surprised. I thought my workload was going to get a little bit less, but, because.
There's always something to fill it. That's
Well,
not going to happen.
Workload, whether they come to the counter and pay or they drop it, is still the same amount of processing that goes through taking that payment. It's just somebody sitting there looking at you versus being able to sit there at a computer and work through. So, I mean, as far as workload, physical workload, it's not going to vary. It's just going to be more of a convenience thing at the window and convenience for the citizens.
Well, I think before we, and there again, it's about statistically plotting customer behavior. Before we do this, then why don't we just put the little question on those notices that we're sending out? would you use a lockbox in front of the courthouse or whatever? Just a question to them, a survey question, and find out how many people are interested in doing that. There's a lot of great benefits. I like it, but there's also some downfall there too. And
We all have a problem with putting a survey on, but this,
It's gonna cost more to put out the inserts and surveys than it would be to put the box up there. I mean, not being funny, but when you're talking about inserting over 4,000 inserts, what insert, a nickel a
Really,
piece?
it would, but under the circumstance, like changing the building, we're gonna have to put an insert in there anyway.
well, that's was
Yeah,
my
that's-
point, that you got to do this. I mean, just add one question to the piece of paper you're putting in. Notice, hey, you're doing this. Would you be in favor of having a lockbox that you could put this in? If so, send it back.
is that a?
Well, just let me ask, is there some response rate that we're expecting? I mean, because I can tell you the response rate is going to be astronomically low. I mean, we're looking for 100 people, 1,000 people? What are we looking for as far as yes before we decide to make this move?
I have no idea.
Right, that's fine.
I'm for it. I'm like Johnny, I'm for it. I don't know if it's, if the statistics.
I'd like to know the cost of that drop box.
$600.
$600.
600.
Inclement weather, I don't know if anybody mentioned that, but inclement weather doesn't always have to be rain. Rain, snow, it could just be cold.
It could be hot.
It could be hot. And
I'm
so
kidding.
I think they're considerable, I think the benefits certainly outweigh.
Well, let's try to see if we make this simple. I mean, if somebody want to make a motion that we do this and just go to that point, and we may not need to discuss anymore. I mean, all got good valid points.
I would make a motion that we put it on the survey, ask a simple question. Would you use a lockbox? Yes or no? No more than that. If so, if you have a yes response, please send this in to the Board of
Is that a
Alderman.
motion, John?
That's been a motion.
Yeah, I would say that. Then I think after we get those responses in, as Toby said, if you got 50, you're not going to do it. There's 100, you might not. We'll find out what that number is. Let's see what the yeses are.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second that we,
Like a little more
all
comment.
right, wait a minute, okay.
My comment to that would be, maybe not necessarily have them to send it back, but they give them the option to either send it back or give you a phone call.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, give them two ways to contact you. And just keep some kind of tally of, so you have something to look at.
Another part of that, Renee, I don't want to cause no trouble, but if y'all, when they come to the window, if you could ask the question and just make a tally, that would probably give you your better. Would you use a lockbox if it was here? If they say yes or possibly, I mean, that would give you a better tally than expecting somebody to send something back. All right, now
The fact of the matter is, the ones that come to the window are the same ones every month. That would probably be the better option to do a survey is at the window survey versus doing
You
something on
might
the
be
inside.
right.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor that we send out unless our motion
Mr.
make a
Chairman.
Talking about two different things now.
Okay, we've
Chairman.
got a motion on the
Mr.
floor.
Chairman.
Wait a minute, okay.
I'm not gonna spend 44 cents to mail that thing back in. I'd like to ask, and I second Johnny's motion, so I'm not against the survey. But I'd like to ask Chairman Hoare if he would reconsider his motion, knowing that we were taking a survey at the window.
John?
I don't have any problem with either one of those. I mean, if you're going to mail your water bill, and I would mail my response in at the same time from that. So I don't have any problem. Let's just get the data. I don't care how we get it.
Get something.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
don't care.
the motion was made that we send a insert on the water bills to have it sent back. Do you want to adjust that motion to include a survey at the window?
Well, I'd like to have both. I mean.
Well, that's what I mean, both
I mean,
of them is fine.
Yeah, it's optional to the
Okay,
customer.
that will
I mean,
include a
it's up to
survey
you.
at the
You
one.
can answer the question at the window, answer the question in the mail.
All right, we've got a motion that we send out a survey, plus we'll do a survey at the window. Do I have a second on that, Jack?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Timmy, Renee, can you make that happen?
Sure.
Thank you.
You want to report back at the December meeting?
And report back at the December meeting, if you will. Thank you. All right, the next on the agenda, Toby's got another issue, two more issues, actually.
Yeah, I got a few more issues. All right. The next issue is to deal with the financing for the proposed new county library. I have sent out the RFP. The responses were received from BB&T, RBC, Centura, and Southern Bank. You have an executive summary in front of you detailing them, and you have the actual bids. Sandy's here to help me if there are any questions. This is what you have before you.
All right, gentlemen,
Yes.
any questions?
Yes. I've read the proposals by the bank, read the county manager's executive summary, and obviously BB&T appears to be the best bank to go with. They have the lowest interest rates, the good closing cost, and they just come in heads and shoulders above the others. But having said that, the recommendation is to finance the library for 15 years on the BB&T 15-year plan at 3.37%. And the rationale behind that was that we intend to pay it off in 5 years, but something may come up and we might want to extend that, and we'd already be under the 15-year plan. Well, by the figures given, that's going to cost us $90,000, because if we go by the 5-year plan, which we intend to pay it off anyway, because once we retire the school debt, we're going to be able to use that $500,000 to pay 2 years in a row and a partial year. So if we went to 1.77, we could pay it off in 5 years, and instead of paying $1,663,401, we'd pay $1,573,012.50. If something was to come up, I think we need to be fair to the taxpayers. We say that we're not raising taxes, but at the same time, we're not allowing ourselves the flexibility to do whatever is unexpected, because we're using up the savings. And that was one of the issues we talked about, is, if we want to raise taxes to fund it, and have the taxpayers to sign up with that. So, obviously that didn't happen, but I would be in favor of the 1.77%, but not the 3.37% for 5 years.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
In looking over the numbers, the 5-year rate is an exceptionally good rate. Exceptionally good compared to the other lending institutions, as well as compared to the 10-year and especially the 15-year. The only concern that I would have would be the flexibility issue. To me, that I agree with Henry on the 5-year, using the 5-year term. That is our plan, to pay it off in 5 years anyway. I did talk with Toby about this, and the issues that he and I came up with, we actually, I threw some examples at him, and he threw some back at me, so we went back and forth on this for a few minutes. And the only issue is flexibility. If the majority thinks that 5 years is best, I will agree. I'll agree on the 5 years along with Henry, if we're okay with the flexibility issue.
Any other comments?
Well, yeah, got quite a few. There's an issue in yesterday's paper. Mr. Bryant wrote, summing up his points about the new library, Chapel stressed that the project was paid for without a tax increase. That's true and false. To make this very clear, if anyone says there will have to be a tax increase to pay for the library, either doesn't know what they're talking about or is lying to you, Chapel said. I don't know which one he's talking about, but I'm telling you, I do know what I'm talking about. This is a tax increase indirectly to you, the citizens of Gates County. So I guess I'm qualified under the other one, so if that's what you want to say. But what's our fund balance today?
The new
So $2.9 million. So if we take $1.5 million out of the fund balance, that leaves us with $1.4 million. Well above the statutory requirements from the state. So why do we need to go borrow money if we're going to do this? I believe in paying for my debts myself. So 2.9 minus 1.5 is 1.4. The state only says you must have an 8%. So we're now at 1.4 million. We paid for this library and we got 1.4 million. How does the government make money? Anybody know? What product do they sell? How do they get their money? They take it from you, the citizen, through taxes. That's the only way they get money. So if you're doing that, hey, we got enough in the fund balance to pay for it. Let's go for it. Let's pay for it. Why do we need a bank? You know why? Because of some other hidden things. That's why. So let's pay for this $1.5 million library out of the fund balance. Now we're talking about going for the courthouse. Over here, we want to do some things, and we do need to do something. Well, as a historical site, and this was brought up, and I've mentioned this before, by 3 of these individuals that presented this the other day about historical tax credits. Now, there's 2 ways to do that, through selling them through corporations. Some of them had to be income producing, and it can also be non-income producing. If you change it to an income producing property, it can get a 40% tax credit, 20% federal, 20% state, discounted by the corporation that buys that debt, that tax credit, however. Now, if you do not change it to an income-producing property, the state of North Carolina gives you a 30% tax credit that you can sell to a corporation, like International Paper, BB&T, people that are into this kind of stuff. Jackson County just did this, and if any of you would go look in our state magazine, and I'm sure you can go to the library and probably have this over there. Do you have this? And you go look at page 19, right here. A beautiful courthouse in Jackson County, North Carolina, was actually refurbished this way, and you know what's in it? A library. So, why do we need to go borrow any money? We don't need to go borrow any yet. We don't need to go borrow any until we start working on this project.
So your recommendation is to take money out of fund balance to pay for the new library, is that
If
right?
that's what you wanted, if you want
No,
to build a
that's your
library,
recommendation, is what I'm asking. Is that
that's
your
exactly right.
All right, Kenny?
I like the 1.77%, but I also understand the flexibility. Henry mentioned the 15-year was 3.37, the 10-year was 2.39. And I can go with Henry on the 1.77. Our plans are to do it in 5 years. Let's do it in 5 years. But I also understand that flexibility that might need to be there for something else. I don't know what that something else is. We've been paying $560-some thousand on a loan through the Board of Education, for these number of years, and we've always made our payments. So I don't see why we can't just turn those payments back into and pay the library off as planned. So I can do with what Jack said or what Henry said, 1.77 in 5 years.
Does anybody want to make a motion on this issue, so we can go ahead and move on?
Before you make a motion, if you could
Okay.
let Cindy and I, at least I, speak. I understand the attractiveness of the 5-year, but again, I feel I need to caution you that you're going to potentially hamstring your flexibility if there are other events that occur. If 15 years is too long, in my opinion, 5 years is too short and requires too little flexibility, then I would recommend maybe the 10-year as a consideration. But I would recommend against the 5-year.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Most people, when they have money that are smart, use their money. This is an attractive rate, no question about it. If you're going to do something, this is it. But what you do, you borrow money when you're in trouble. That's when you want to go see the banker, is when you need some money. Any business, corporation, they don't go out doing this if they have the money. That's a fact. And I know. I've managed lots of projects. I've spent a lot of International Paper's money. International Paper had deep pockets. Gates County right now has $2.9 million fund balance. That's your money. How do you get fund balance? You get it from the citizens. If we spend this 1.5 and go to 1.4, well, we're going to make a $562,000 payment. Now we're back to 1.9. Now we're going to make another $500,000 payment, and we're at 2.4. So does this make sense to you? If you got the money in your pocket, pay for it. Simple as that. If we get in trouble, then we go borrow money. We go to the bank and say, hey, I got a nice fancy library here. What will you lend me on that library?
Okay, now everybody's made comment. Do we have a motion on which rate that we want to use?
I just have one more comment.
Yes, sir.
On the flexibility. To give yourself more time so that you will have flexibility, basically is what you're saying to the citizens is that we're retiring a debt. We've got another $500,000, which represents about 5 cents on your tax bill. I think 1 cent is about $86,000. So what it says to our citizens is this, is that we've taxed you to pay for the school. Now we're going to retire the school debt, and we're going to pay for the library out of that same tax money. But I'm not going to give you any money back. I'm not going to reduce your taxes by 3 cents because I want to stay in a position that since I'm spending this money here, if I need something else, I can continue to keep your money. We never see a tax relief. The federal government is $14.9 trillion in deficit. the state and the county don't have the liberty to go in a deficit to purchase things or put in new programs. We have to have a balanced budget. So that means whatever we do, we have to tax the citizens. We can't have an unbalanced budget. So when I retire a debt that I've taxed you for, in fairness, I ought to give you some money back when I'm paying that debt off. But if I keep that money and says, okay, I'm looking for something else to spend this money so I never have to give it back, when I do need to do something under an emergency, guess what? I'm going to have to tax you some more money because I've already spent that I could have given back. So when we talk about flexibility, we're talking 2 years of using $500,000, 2 years, because we've got year 1 and 2 that we're not going to use. We're still paying on the school. We have to go a little bit more in fund balance. So in that 2-year time frame, I really don't see, where we would put ourselves in so much jeopardy of not having sufficient funds to do what we need because we've committed ourselves to this 5-year limit. So, I understand the flexibility, but it's not a long-term thing. And if we need money, we're going to have to tax the citizens anyway. So that's the upfront reality of it all.
All right. Now, is there a motion on one of the, on which way we want? We've got the option of the 1.7%. I feel like BB&T is the agreement of everybody being the best decision. We've got 3 options here. We've got 1.77% for 5 years, 2.39% for 10 years, 3.37% for 15 years, or pull the money out of fund balance to pay for it up front. Do we have that in any type of motion?
Well, one more discussion, Mr. Chairman. In lieu of what Mr. Jordan has just said, that's the thing that you really need to be paying attention to. As he said, and Mr. Chappell's comment, there's no tax increase. That's right. But you retired debt, and you continue to tax the citizens at that same rate. It's a tax increase. Simple as that. If you went out and bought an automobile for 36 payments, $500 a month, and you paid through payment number 40, spent an extra $2,000, and they kept your money, but the obligation was done at 36, how would you feel? Would you feel that they had done you wrong? Would you feel that it's done the citizens wrong if you pay for this debt that you've been taxed at 64 cents? And then it's paid off, and your payment don't stop? Because just like Henry said, it gets spent somewhere else. It's easy to spend someone else's money. But I have the power sitting on this side of the table, if I can justify that expenditure, to tax you at any time. Now, I've got a 12-month window this in. Where should the power be? The power should be with the people to determine what they want, what they're willing to step up to the plate for. We have the $1.5 million. Why not spend it? If that's what we want, let's go for it.
All right, Johnny, you making that as a motion?
I make a motion that we take the $1.5 million out of fund balance and buy this library. If we get into
All
trouble...
right, we've got a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Well, I'm going to clarify
The motion's on the table.
Now, I got another part to it. We take $1.5 million out of fund balance and pay for this library that you want. Then if we get in trouble, we asked one of these banks to lend us money against that asset that we have that's 100% paid for. Simple as that.
Is that the motion now?
That is the motion.
All right, we've got a motion on the table that we pay for the library using $1.5 million worth of fund balance and ask the banks if they will loan us money if we get in trouble on that asset. Do I have a second?
In trouble with the fund balance.
With the fund balance. Do I have a second on that motion? All right, motion dies. Are there any other motions that need to be made?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we finance the library at 1.77% for 5 years, with the county manager giving us a breakdown of the cost, the semi-annual cost, just prior to initiating the loan. In other
Okay.
words, we want to see the figures.
Okay. The actual figure. Okay, we've got a motion on the
I
table.
second that motion.
Wait a minute, let's,
I just want to clarify what he's asking. Commissioner Jordan, you're asking to see this similar breakdown using 5 years? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
At 1.77.
Correct, I just want to clarify.
1.5 million. You
At
said-
1.77%.
Oh, percent, okay. All right, we've got a motion that we move at 1.77% for the 5-year loan with the county manager doing a breakdown before the final paperwork is presented, right? It's got to go through LGG and all that stuff first, right?
Well, yeah, actually, you have to contact You actually have to contact BB&T and advise them that you're taking the 1.77 loan, and then contact the legislature and the LGC. You have to
Okay.
make your commitment first.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Thank you, gentlemen.
Next item I have is the condemnation ordinance. And this is going to be mostly an FYI at this point. Do you have copies? They have copies of this? You should have in your stack a copy of the condemnation ordinance. The second paragraph has a highlighted sentence that the county has been requested to add for your consideration. It's not for a vote today. We're going to have to do a public hearing, but this is mostly for your FYI, that this is an issue that's come up.
Well, this is something that needs to be done. We can do it in the next meeting, though. I mean, we've got to have a public. hearing.
Yeah, Diane's going to advertise for the public hearing at the night meeting, correct? At the night meeting. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I got a little bit of concern with this. You know, we as a county, we don't have a preservation commission. We don't have any standards or requirements of how historic properties should be maintained. So, you know, although a building can be on a historic register, if the owners don't maintain it, it could become an eyesore, it could become something that's going to degrade property in the community. I'm a little concerned that we just do a blanket exemption without some kind of stipulation that they should be maintained in accordance with the National Register requirements or something.
If I could, and I'll speak hypothetically here. Hypothetically, if someone was buying, say, the Sunbury School, and if they had the concern of the day they buy it, if it's deemed to be in violation of this condemnation order, that could affect their willingness to purchase this. That would be a hypothetical example of this issue. And if there's a different way it should be worded, then I'm obviously all for it. But that's what we're trying to avoid, is it someone who takes on a large-scale project that we realize is going to be a long-term remedy, that they could find themselves in violation of the condemnation order on day one and could retard any progress that would be made in that area.
Could there be a section added on here that each site would be, any site would be, could be considered by the commissioners on an individual basis? I mean, any historic site would be considered by the commissioners on an individual basis, would that, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I defer to Pitt, but let me ask this question. My only concern with that would be, is if I bought a piece of property and this board said I was exempt, and then another board replaces you in 5 years, and I'm not through with the renovations, could that board reactivate the condemnation ordinance? And that would be a Pitt question, but that would be a concern.
Yeah.
Try to explain the question to me again.
Okay, if I was to buy, for example, the Sunbury School, and I know that this is a say for example, 7 to 10 year project for me to have it completely renovated. My fear is that the day I buy it, the county could come in and say, you're in violation of the condemnation ordinance, and begin the condemnation process. What the chairman has asked was, could the board on an individual basis exempt certain properties? And my concern would be if you did that a different seated board 5 years from now comes back and says, well, I understand what you did in 2011, but we want the condemnation ordinance to go forward, and could they reactivate it?
With that specific language, as a representative of a prospective buyer, I would have a problem with it the way you stated it. It could be maybe tied in, as Henry said, somewhat to the historical property. It's on the register, something that you could put your hands on, but what the situation that you're saying is you're going to have a different board coming in, and then they could cut the feet out from under the individual at a later time.
Right.
Well, actually, that could be the case on any ordinance, is that right?
Well, yeah, they could amend the ordinance, but then the people who, if I bought it, I would say I bought it under the guidelines of 2011, and you can't retroactively change the rules on me.
I think the buyer would have the strong argument that you couldn't go back and change the rules after I've already purchased it and my deed's gone to record. I would stay away from the commissioner's board doing anything on a one-on-one basis.
Okay.
That's my
Well,
point of view.
I mean, we're looking at language. Why couldn't we say that the historic property shall be exempt from this ordinance for county-owned or public-owned historic properties?
Because in my example,
property is sold, it would be-
I bought Sunbury School, so it's no longer publicly owned.
And the other part would be that properties privately owned have a 5 or 10 year exemption from the date of purchase. Historic properties. If you would give them some grace period.
That would make sense.
I refer to Pitt, he's the attorney here.
All right. Again, what I'm saying is, all right, where it reads, structures which are listed on the National Register of Historic Places and on North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office shall be exempt from this ordinance. We could say public or county structures which are listed. And then with the other part would be private properties on historic national registers are exempt for a 5-year or 10-year period from date of purchase or
Can I ask, just for the sake of simplicity, couldn't you just continue the sentence as written? It says, North Carolina State Preservation Office shall be exempt from this ordinance, comma, for a period to extend 10 years from the date of sale. Couldn't you just make it simple that way?
But we have in the end of that sentence, North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office. Or do we know that that statement is not in contradiction? I mean, if we say 5 years, 10 years, 7 years, the state may have something in place that says, oh, no, you won't.
I don't follow.
I mean, the state may have some ruling. I mean, that property is registered, whether it be county-owned or privately owned, is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So those people go and record those properties on the North Carolina Historic Register for a couple of reasons. One, because it makes them available for certain funds from certain places to keep their property up. But they might also do it to protect it. So what I'm saying is if we try to put a timeline on this, I mean, do we know for a fact that there's a timeline that the state has? I would bet that the North Carolina Preservation Agency or Association or Society, whatever, wants to protect it forever. And we're talking about putting a 5-year, 10-year.
Well, I think Pitt can speak to this better than I can maybe. But being on the National Historic Registry does not exclude you from condemnation at any point. I mean, it is more difficult, and there are extra procedural things that have to
Well,
occur.
that's what I'm talking
Right,
about.
but
If it doesn't-
I don't believe it, is Morgan still here? Morgan, can you speak to this? I don't believe being on National Historic Registry excludes you from ever being in condemnation, correct? It just makes it more difficult. Right.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to have the conflict. I'm okay with the way you worded it.
I think Commissioner Jordan's word would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish and still protect the county.
You want to send your word to
Again, public or county-owned structures which are listed on the National Register of Historic Places and our North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office shall be exempt from this ordinance. Private properties, same wording, listed on the National Historic Places, North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office, shall be exempt from this ordinance for a period of 10 years
From the date of purchase.
from the date of purchase.
That would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish and still protect the county, in my opinion.
Are y'all, are the commissioners okay with that wording?
Sounds good.
Why don't we go ahead and get that
Yeah,
set,
yeah, we'll
and
set
set
it
up
up.
the public hearing for that wording?
Yes, sir. That concludes mine at this point.
All right, next thing on our agenda, we're going into new business. Johnny, you're first on the agenda with the issue on closed sessions.
I think I'll defer to our next meeting.
Okay. I have, the next on there is, I have, an appointment to ask for, a reappointment actually, for the, Albemarle Resources Conservation and Development Council. We have a letter from, Faye Darden Smith and Mildred Hawkins, asking to be reappointed to this board. They are set, am I right?
This will be,
Okay, that's the wrong one.
I think it's just announcing that we have a vacancy.
All right, the first thing we need to do is that reappointment of, let's see, wrong one. Let me get back where I was at. I skipped one down. Discussion and appointment of board at Albemarle Resources Conservation Development Council. That's Will Earl, right?
Where you at?
Will Earl has resigned from that board and has asked to be replaced. Have we advertised or talked to anybody, or has anybody?
I think if the board pleasure, Diane can go ahead and advertise if that's what you wish.
All right, would that be the board's pleasure to have her advertise for somebody to fill his seat on that board?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All, motion made, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Will you advertise that, Diane?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
In the advertisement, I'd like to be sure that the term of the appointment be stated.
Yeah, that's that one there. That's the one we just took care of. All right, now, let me get back where we were. A reappointment of Ms. Faye Darden Smith and Ms. Mildred Hawkins to the Gates County Nursing Home. Oh, I didn't vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. I
Mr.
thought we
Chairman,
did.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something.
Okay.
On Mr. Willie Earl Hopper's behalf, I think he did a good job while he was there. He brought some projects to the county that were very nice. And I think that one of them was the canoe launch at the Mill Pond was one of them. The dockage down here at the walk area at the Bennett's Creek Bridge. These were some of his projects that he worked on and the RC&D Council helped put in. So I'd like to thank him, and I'd like a card sent to him for his work with them.
You take care of that, Diane.
And he also worked on a conservation project that probably nobody's ever seen in here. It's behind the Board of Education building. Here in
The
Gates.
ditching program back there.
The ditching program back there.
So he worked on several projects in the years that he was doing that. And I'd like I said, I'd like to see him send a card recognizing that.
Okay, you're gonna take care of that, Diane. All right, the next thing on there, we'll go back to the reappointment of Ms. Faye Darden Smith and Ms. Mildred Hawkins to the Gates County Nursing Board. They have requested to be reappointed. we don't have a application, but we're already on the board for reappointment. I think we determined that was something we'd like to get them to fill out one at some point in time and get it on file. Okay. Do I have a motion to reappoint these two ladies to the,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we reappoint Ms. Faye Darden Smith and Ms. Mildred Hawkins to serve another term on the Albemarle Commission Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee.
all right, we've got a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, you'll notify them, Diane? All right, that takes care of that. The next one there, the county manager has 2 points that we need to discuss before the grant administrator contract.
Yeah, actually, it's going to become 3, I think, by the end, but we'll start with the grant administrators. You have before you the contract to administer the EDA $900,000 grant and the Rule Center $700,000 grant, which I believe is going to have a welcome reception next week. Is that right? Wednesday the 9th at the Merchants Mill Pond Center. The way Mike Scott advised, and I believe last time he was here, was that we did one contract to write the grants, and then this is the separate contract to actually administer the grants. Are there any questions?
One of these grants is actually will be paid through the grant. The other one.
Right, yeah, let me clear that up if you would. The EDA grant is not reimbursable through the grant. The Rule Center administration is reimbursable through the grant.
So in other words, we're spending $25,000 and $35,000, of which one is not reimbursable?
$25,000.
How much?
$25,000.
So the 35 is actually coming out of, how about the other grant that's going to be done? That you were talking
Can I
about?
ask a question?
We haven't been awarded another one.
Which other grant
Which
you're
grant
referring
you
to?
talking about?
Well, you said one was coming.
Yeah.
No,
much is that?
I'm telling you, the Rule Center
The Rule
is the one
Center
that's being
grant.
announced next week.
That's this
And how
one we're
much is
talking.
that?
That's the the 35,000 is the EDA, the 25,000 is the Rule Center grant. It's the same grant.
How about the third one, though? You said there might be a third one coming a few minutes ago.
No, I was saying the Rule Center is going to be announced
Okay.
Wednesday.
That's the official now.
It's the official announcement.
So, we don't have the expertise to do this?
No.
You're not capable of doing that, Toby?
I don't think we want to discuss my capabilities in public, do you?
I do about administering this grant, yes, sir. Are you capable of doing this grant? Why are we paying someone else when we have I've read these right here and trying to look at what is going on here. Now, I've done a lot of government, have Sarbanes-Oxley, Bureau of Census, several of these things. There are templates out there to do this stuff. Are you capable of doing this? And if so, why not? Why should I spend $25,000 and $35,000? I have 5 people up here, and you. Why does the county have to do this? Why? What are we paying you for?
This is.
I'm not even going to entertain or dignify it with an answer. Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
that's good.
Gentlemen, this is getting outrageous.
No, it's not. It's
We're-
a legitimate question.
It's a good question, and the answer's not coming. So let's
Obviously.
let it go. The question is here, we hired Mike Scott when the original started this process to write and administer these grants. These are the contracts to do this. We already had the contract for the writing, and these are the contracts to administer the grants after we received them.
Again, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I ask, why are we not qualified to do this? What level of expertise do we need?
We hired, Henry, you want to talk to this? You were part of this originally too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be a grant administrator, there's a lot of things you have to do to administer this grant as far as following the progress, reports. There's just a lot of things to it, and I'm not sure that the county manager's time would even allow him to do that, in addition to what his daily duties are. This is why you have built into the grant administration fees. And some, as has been pointed out, some of the grants don't have a built-in administration fee. So, you know, if the county is going to benefit by $500,000, $250,000, to pay $25,000 to administer a grant is certainly a good deal. So, you know, I'm not sure well, I know we should not look at this as if, you know, the county's paying $25,000. What we're doing is we're paying $25,000 to get $200,000. So, you know, looking in that light, sometimes you've got to pay a little something to get something, and there again, you know, I'm not sure that we want to tie the county manager down to administering grants, because there is quite a bit involved in doing that. So, but that would be my response to this. The other part would be that, you know, before we move forward on it, on the first one, the agreement for the Grant Administration Services, Gates County Economic Development Administration Grant Project, Gates County. On the second sheet, I think we need a little clarification on the legal remedies. It says in the last sentence, it says, if failure to accomplish project activities is based on events beyond the control of the county, this commitment may be partially waived by the county with prior approval by the Division of County Assistance. So it seems like to me that should have been the contractor. If failure to accomplish this project activities is based on events beyond the control.
I'm not sure that sentence belongs in that paragraph, to be honest with you. You're talking about the federal EDA, and then in the sentence they're talking about the State Division of Community Assistance. My recommendation is that that sentence be stricken, and I don't believe it's appropriate to this contract.
All right, well, that's, yeah,
Who was the contract written by?
Mike Scott.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Mike pretty proficient? I mean, his reputation in these things is, from what I understand, talking to other counties, and is that when they get a chance to use him, they do him, and they do use him, and I would believe that this would be standard.
If the board wishes, I can clarify that one sentence without holding anything else up.
Yeah, if we get clarification on that,
Yes,
make
sir.
sure that
Okay.
Now, assuming it gets stricken, is that still permissible? And if it doesn't, is that also still permissible? So we don't have a situation where things are being modified and not from the board.
All right. That's acceptable to me.
All right.
So, Henry, how many man-hours would you estimate would be involved in this?
I don't have an idea. You know, I could guess, and my guess would be purely something I'd have to pull out of the sky, but with what my dealings have been with grants so far, there's a lot of work that goes into it. You've got to have maintain a lot of documentation, a lot of follow-up. You know, I would envision that, you know, for this particular grant, that Mike would certainly allot probably 10 to 15% of his time, or at least 10%, in monitoring this grant. And you know, that's what that would add up to. I'm not sure, but you know, when you can look at the requirements in here, what it's talking about. When you're talking about assuring project activities and expenditures are accomplished in accordance with EDA grant requirements and guidelines, you know, this person is experienced. He's done this many times. He knows what those guidelines are. And I'm not, we wouldn't, I wouldn't expect our people to know all those requirements because they don't work on them day by day. But this is what he does, and when you work with something like that continuously, you're proficient. And to put that on someone else, it might take Mike 10% of his time, but to put it on one of our employees would probably take 25% of their time because they would spend a lot of time having to try to get familiar with various documents and so forth. So I guess I would probably say 10%,
Well, that's
and that's purely a guess.
normally in most anything, and like you just said, he has done it many times. He has a template that he goes by. There's this kind of stuff is done every day, as has been mentioned of other places.
Johnny, I'd like to ask you, how long have you been writing grants and administering grants?
Oh, I haven't, Ram, I don't know that.
What I'm trying to get at is
But I
last
have
year,
done
we
things.
went through this trying to get to the point where we had trouble getting grants written to get them, so we hired a professional to do this.
That's a different thing.
Well,
Writing
part
a
of that
grant
was
versus
to administer
administrating.
the grant, which if you read the grant administration and everything that goes along with it, there's a whole, like Henry says, they've got a lot of paperwork and controls that, they're also part of the contractors, make sure that everything is met to controls. That's why we as a board decided last year that this was the right direction to go.
It is true about writing the grant.
But it's also true about administering this grant.
Now, well, Graham, I'm in the paperwork process. I've been doing paperwork for 40 years. I've been filing taxes for that same amount of time. I'm very familiar with the federal government and things they put and require you to do.
And you do a good job at that, right?
Sometimes
That's
yes,
why,
sometimes
that's why
no.
you do it. That's why we talk about hiring somebody that knows what they're doing and is doing it.
But I did not know it. I learned to do it, Graham.
So
That's the
how
key.
do we suffer while we're learning?
That's what we're doing here today. We are
That's
suffering.
exactly what we're doing. We're suffering.
We are
we'll-
suffering because of lack of experience.
The next thing here, we've got these two contracts. I want a motion that we accept the contracts as presented or change of Henry on the EDA grant.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Abstain.
He abstained. Johnny abstained.
There's a budget amendment.
Okay. All right, you got a budget amendment
Yep,
too?
she's getting it right now.
I'm tired of suffering.
Okay, we'll come back to that. We're gonna backtrack in a minute for a resolution. Yes.
Just one?
Yeah, it's for this, for what you just approved.
Okay.
Also need.
Okay, we've got a budget amendment. You want to present it?
Yes, this is the budget amendment to pay for what you just approved for the EDA and the Rural Center Administration.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve this budget amendment.
All right, we've got a motion. I have a second.
Second.
All opposed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Okay. Johnny,
You voted twice.
you opposed it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Johnny opposed the budget amendment.
Can we backtrack for just a minute, if you will?
Okay.
As part of accepting BB&T's offer for the financing of the library, and apologize for backtracking, here's one, take one, pass them down if you would. There's a resolution, there's not just a simple vote, it's actually a resolution. And I believe it was in your packet with the rest of the bid. I think it is. I think you, yeah, if you look in the bid from BB&T, this resolution was included.
So we voted to accept the BB&T. We've got to vote to approve this resolution.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this is merely documentation for you to sign as chairman that we're moving forward with BB&T, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this resolution for signature.
So, discussion.
Moving a second. All in favor, say aye.
Do we have discussion?
Oh,
We have discussion.
Henry? Oh, I'm sorry, Henry. I thought you said second.
The blank that says percentage,
That would be 1.77. You couldn't fill it in because y'all hadn't made a decision yet.
okay, all right, that's,
And for 5 years.
Correct.
yeah,
The two, that should be the two blanks respectively.
okay.
All right. Now, we've got a motion on the floor to approve this resolution for the bank loan for the library. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Abstain.
Next
Did
thing.
you get that, vote on that? Okay.
Next issue, just making the packet or they get it on the table, the personnel board.
That was on
That was added.
In your stack, you should have the minutes from the personnel board, which met on October 27th. Several months ago, the Board of Commissioners asked the personnel board to look into deputy salaries. The findings from the personnel board are included in these minutes, specifically in the packet. The paragraph that starts, Mr. Jordan makes a motion.
Henry, you want to go over it too?
Yes.
You made the motion.
There was much concern in the county and among the board of the pay of our deputies and the officers in the sheriff department. And we did research as to what the pay was in relation to other counties. And we did find that there was some disparity that needed to be corrected. So what the personnel board, we went through all those documentations, and what we came up with was, in fairness, we should reclassify our sergeants, who are currently, I think, in the 61, and reclassify them to a 64, ensuring that they would receive at least a 2% increase. And in other words, what would happen is they would go from their current step to the next step within the higher grade without giving them a pay loss. But we wanted to go 2% because the deputies' pay was determined to be not at an acceptable level right now for what other counties are paying. So we increased the deputies by 2%. So by giving both of them 2%, it keeps the disparity from closing in. In other words, a sergeant, if we gave him the same money, all of a sudden the deputies would increase on them, and you wouldn't have the acknowledgement of the longevity as well as pay for a higher level or more complex job, if you will. So we as a personnel board would like the board to consider reclassifying the sergeants to a 64N and a 64H respectively with a 2% increase, and the deputies give them a 2% increase based on a 2-step.
To be effective January 1st.
Be effective January 1st.
We talked to the sheriff, and he was able to work this in his budget. Is that right, Sandy? Which will cover the cost between January 1 and the fiscal year, correct?
June 30.
And then it would be rebudgeted with the new salaries for the next year. This was directed by the commissioners to the personnel board. We took a long time doing it, but we've been trying to make sure we made the right decision. It would put the deputies at a above average pay rate as the other counties in our area, and that's what we were charged to do. We feel like this is a very good plan, and we'd like to for the board to really consider this.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't put them above average, but we put them
Well,
equal.
Well, not above average. It was equal to bring them up to an average pay, along with the rest of the counties.
Right. Thank you.
In that case, I would like to.
Question.
Oh, yes, sir.
Without, I know it's been a while since I looked at that with our adjoining counties. If you took those adjoining counties with total salaries paid to the deputies with years of experience, how would we rank?
I don't think we had years of experience figured in that, Johnny. It was basically, the numbers that we had was just on what the deputies were paid at this time. When we were trying to, we were so low in the average that we wanted to try to get them up to average pay. But one of the problems we found there was several young deputies that were very early in the rate. If we moved a few, it would throw a skew in all deputies. Another part of this, the sheriff we're working on will be possibility of having experience being part of this. A deputy will come in at a certain rate until he had 3 to 5 years experience, then he would move to another rate. To try to keep this from happening again, as deputies come in and step them up. The sheriff's looking at some of them numbers right now, if I remember right.
As a matter of fact, we charged the county manager to help him to write in the ordinance where you would bring a deputy in at one rate, possibly the current rate, and then after 5 years, they would go to our next level. And that way, it would acknowledge their years of longevity and experience, as you just pointed out.
And part of the problem we had was all the deputies were in 61. Some of them had been here at that time when we started, hadn't been here but 2 to 3 months, and some of them had been here several years. But if you moved either one up a scale, it would skew the salaries terribly without making sure everybody moved and stayed in a pretty. Actually, if we just moved them a step down, all deputies, which is no more one classification of deputy, the younger deputies would be making as much or more as the old ones were, pretty close to where they're at if we just moved them up. It became an issue, and it was easier to do it this way for this first part, and then the sheriff will be working with Toby trying to bring them in at have a different name instead of having all deputies. It would possibly be a first
class deputy or master
deputy,
deputy,
something like that. But they're working on that, which will help adjust and make this a little easier down the line for the next group.
I'd be interested in seeing how that compares, if I remember correctly, on the documents that we had, that they were on the bottom. I believe it was. Can't remember that, but I would suggest making that calculation after these salaries have been instituted, that we can make that same comparison. And if it is possible to get the years of experience of all these other counties with the number of deputies to their associated salaries and see what are we paying on a competency level for as years of experience.
That would make a lot of sense. But at this point right now, just to
this is
start
fine.
working,
I'm very supportive.
Would you write that up and email it to me for the personnel board, and I'll make sure we get it in there in the next meeting and start discussing it. All right, are y'all all right with this? Is this something that y'all accept as a board? If so, I'd like to have a motion that we accept this and move forward with it.
I make a motion we move forward with this document.
All right, we got a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign.
This is a second issue from the personnel board. If you go to the second page, these are the only 2 issues that are ready for the board to actually discuss from the personnel board, which deals with the personnel ordinance and recruitment sources text edition. We're having a problem where we're required by the policy to advertise in local newspapers for part-time positions and temporary positions. What the personnel board recommends is that the inserted italics language be utilized and give some discretion on not having to advertise, unfortunately, in Cal's newspaper for $400 or $500 for a position that is only temporary or part-time.
Henry, you got a comment on that?
Yeah, and there again, I think the county manager needs a latitude to determine when it's appropriate. We may put the job on the county website. We may put it the employment commission, and don't get responses. And so he can make the decision then whether or not he wants to go to the newspaper and have it advertised. But if it's a part-time job, it's not something that we have to have right away. We just need that leeway, if you will.
On that, and I agree with that, Henry, but I think we need to have the wording temporary. If it's a long-term employee that we're procuring, I would certainly want to hit everything that I could to make sure that I have exposed myself to soliciting the best candidates out there.
So you're talking about using just for temporary and part-time?
That's right, and I agree with this on a temporary basis. I don't think you should do that, but if you're looking for a long-term employee, I would certainly use all means to find the best available person.
For temporary and part-time? For temporary and
No,
part-
no, long-term.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah, just add another in there, yeah.
For such advertisement in addition to being, wait a minute. Such advertisement in addition to being advertised internally.
I guess it-
Temporary and part-time. Somewhere in there we need temporary and part-time, is I guess what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So basically, not to advertise in the paper for temporary and part-time.
Well,
That's pretty
if you
much what
want
we're
to,
saying.
it's up to you, but
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't either. Toby, you were part of that board. Can you make the changes of that?
Mhm.
How about anybody else on the board?
I'm okay with it. I'm okay. With the changes.
Y'all want to make that as a motion, Henry?
I'll make a motion that we change the personnel ordinance to allow advertising for temporary and part-time employment through the local newspaper or papers when deemed appropriate.
All right, we got a motion of a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
One,
Is that it?
actually, I do have one last thing, and I think Reba was going to probably talk about this, but I'll pass it out for the discussion. Typically, the last day before the county offices close for Christmas, we have had a luncheon or meal with the staff. There's been trouble with attendance due to the fact that county offices have been forced to remain open. I asked Reba and BJ, and they graciously accepted to take on this task to make it more comprehensive for the county employees so that it can be better attended. They had done so, and that's what you have in your hand. The issue for the county, and there's no county money involved in the actual get-together. The issue for the commissioners to decide is if you're willing to allow the offices to close early at 3 o'clock on the last day before Christmas as a reward to the employees.
I think it's a good gesture. I think it should be on a year-by-year basis, not fully implemented for
I agree. I agree with that.
All right, you making that a motion, Henry,
Yeah, for this year.
for this year? Any other comment or a second?
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay?
That is in fact all from me.
Okay, commissioners will get an invite.
Thank you, Reba. I need the citizens' comments for the afternoon, if anybody's still here. Okay, we've got two here. Anthony, you first one on the list. Welcome, Anthony.
I am from York, North Carolina, and I don't know if anybody read the paper for October the 26th.
Not a bad idea.
Where they had a little thing in the paper that I wrote about, about the meetings and the library and stuff. I'm gonna read it, Time to think positive. I attended and voiced my concerns about the library decision. A number of folks weren't pleased. However, I did not see any problems of the decision. When I picked up something to read at a library, I don't want to have to push buttons to read it. I want something that I can turn pages in either a paper or hardback book. When it comes to pushing buttons, I can do that on the internet or a calculator. Sure, I like going to the library that's located inside the old courthouse because of its history being there, along with the books to check out. Instead of getting unhappy about decisions of the new library, we need to come together and come up with ideas to help raise money for the new one to come. This, to me, could help save money on our tax dollars. Let's think positive.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate you.
Because, you know, last time I was here, everybody was like getting heated up behind us. I mean, that don't solve a problem.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pat, you're next on the list.
Pat Favelar, Gates County Public Librarian. Money is always a problem, and if you've paid attention to the library over the years, you know that we've tried to raise money to help us do different programs in the library. We've sold pizzas, we have a little bank on the desk to take money. Well, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've sold Christmas wreaths, and Christmas is coming whether we are ready or not. So you'll see flyers all over town and all over the county about these Christmas wreaths, and if you didn't come to the library and if you didn't buy one, you don't know what a fresh Fraser fir wreath, how good it can smell when you buy one. So we'll give you each a flyer and hope you'll all buy a wreath. And
Can you say that 4 times real fast?
no, I can't say it 4 times real fast, but I challenge you.
No.
So I give you all one and encourage you to support your library.
All right, and that's the last of our public comment. Now we'll move into our commissioner comments. Commissioner Jordan?
I guess I pretty much said quite a bit. We want to thank all the citizens for coming and for being a part of the meeting. I want to recognize our tax collector, assessor, administrator, Renee McGinnis. She's not here, but she's worked very well with the Housing Committee in getting data for us and identifying homes that we can document in the new grant that we're working with as being those types of homes that need to be assessed because they are in fair, poor, very poor condition. And, you know, it's that kind of cooperation within the county that helps us to do the job that we need to do to represent the citizens. So I do thank her. I've thanked her already, and I just wanted to make mention of that. And, you know, as we move forward, that's what we're going to need is cooperation and assistance wherever we can within the departments, and it really makes things a lot better. That's all I've got right now.
All right, thank you, Henry. Commissioner Owens?
I want to just address a comment that Earl Roundtree made in the earlier citizens' comments, just to reassure the public and to reassure him that in closed session, I believe we police ourselves very well, not getting off of the statute that brings us in there, and we actually do that by, a lot of times by asking the question. If we, I know I have, and my colleagues have too, if we think that we're getting off of that topic at all, we ask the question, if I go here, are we still on topic? So I just want to say that we are policing ourselves very well, and Johnny and I being 2 new commissioners, the other seasoned commissioners taught us that lesson early on. So I want to reassure the public that we are abiding by those rules that are in place for closed session. Another thing I want to bring to everybody's attention, there's a new business in town. I believe yesterday was going to be their opening. When you go down 158 to Sunbury, on the left there was a junkyard there. And if you've been down there, you've noticed that the gentleman who's purchased that business has really cleaned that place up. He has painted the building, and the name of his company He may have a different name for the Gates County location, not sure about that yet. It's going to be Big Bucks Recycling Incorporated. I stopped by there and paid them a visit about 3 weeks ago when they were remodeling the building. They're going above and beyond. I inquired a little bit deeper of somebody else, and this gentleman has a good reputation doing the same type of project, I think in 3 other locations. And they assured me that they're going to be paying a premium price for scrap metal, copper, aluminum, all of that stuff. They're doing it a little bit different than a lot of other places. And if everything holds true to what I was told, that will not be an ugly sight. They handle their steel quickly, compact it, put it in a crate, take it inside that building, and then when they get one truck, they run with it. So I hope that's the case. Anyway, it's good to have new business in the county, and if you have the opportunity to pass that word on, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack.
And also, Mr. Chairman, occasionally, if you will, with the commissioner's comments, if you'll start with Mr. Jernigan occasionally, every now and then, and come this way, I'd appreciate that.
All right.
A little change.
No problem. Johnny, that means you're in the middle all the time there, bud.
Oh, well, I'm sure there's some reasons for that, and I tend to agree.
Commissioner Horde, would you like to make a comment? I want to respect it.
I'm going to talk about our article in the paper here on the new library and questions and answers. And Mr. Bryan, I wished you would give me an opportunity. I love debate. Matter of fact, I challenge anyone up here, if they'd like to debate on this issue, I'd be glad to do it in any time form anyone wants to be there, and we'll talk about this. It said in here there wasn't going to be a tax increase. Well, Mr. Jordan told you exactly correctly. There is a disguised tax increase, is what it amounts to. Now, why is that? Well, some people have an agenda. Another issue that was in this thing was talking about raising concerns about the actual usage. There are a lot of actual usage other than taking books out of the library, computers, etc. No question about that. But I challenge each of you to go look at what the definition of a library is in the dictionary. Now, they've been modified some, but I question you and ask you to do that. It said that, you know, with the thing about the clickers and all, well, then there was a statement in here, and I need to ask Ms. Famelaw about this. If you look closely at some of the other numbers that have been published, they have dealt with those ages 18 and above and used them as the percentage of books. How is a juvenile defined?
Up to age 18, but a juvenile can also get a library card with parent signature.
Right. So, and there was a comment here, that misses an entire constituency of those age 17. Well, if you would have noticed on that presentation I had, it had adults, it had juveniles, it had staff, and it had outreach. There was 4 groups. So they were counted in the statistical data. If I hadn't counted them, it would have looked worse than it did. So what is a juvenile? To me, it is a person under 18. So they were in the numbers. They were counted in the numbers. So this is false. We're talking about the building over here. What I wanted to do was move the library into another building for a short period of time, take this $1.5 million, of which you could get these tax credits back and get 30% or 40% of your money back, and build and put the library. They did that, as I said, in Jackson County, North Carolina, a beautiful place. That's exactly what they did. Now, I think, so we're biting off 2 birds right here that we got to handle. That was an opportunity. This comment made that it would take a significant amount of money to renovate those. Well, $130,000 is out the window. What do you think you could do with one of these buildings for $130,000 with local contractors that you could get? says that the courthouse will be done in phases. Yeah, that's true. We probably will have to do that. Is the space conducive to what we're doing? I don't know. I really can't tell you what can be done without some in-depth looking at that. So I question those things, and then they talked about the voter referendum, and I really have a real problem with this one. And this is what happened back in March. I made the motion that we use this general statute, 153A, 149, to allow the voters to determine the rate that they would be taxed at. It didn't go. It tells you specifically how you can do that. We just know that our taxes are going to stay up, so that's there. This was voted against, using tax money to build a library. 3 gentlemen up here voted against taxing you, the citizens, to build a library. Yet we just approved a loan for $1.5 million that's going to be paid with tax dollars. That's what happened. That's what happened up here. The school was paid with tax dollars, $562,000. Now we're going to do the same thing. So this was very valid. It's all about the questions you ask and how you're being, as Anthony just said, being positive and proactive and looking for solutions to solve a problem, not to look for roadblocks. We were looking for roadblocks. I wanted to go get the database, and I'm going to jump off of this. Ann Askey made a very good point this morning. That's what they did in Ahoskie there to proactively solicit businesses. They hired this firm that's got a huge database. You know what they do? They go to all the credit card companies and get all of the transactions that they have. They know where you live. They don't know your name, but they sell the transaction data. So they look at zip code 27935, Ewell, North Carolina. They see a lot of transactions going to Applebee's, Home Depot, Lowe's. You know what they say? These people shop there. They are potential customers. That's what they do. They do it from a database. It gives them information. We need to be proactive and do that same thing. So when you look at these things, and Dr. Joyce did note that the county could conduct a voter referendum if they chose to levy a tax that would be used for the purpose of repaying the loan used for the library construction. What did we just say? Is tax dollars going to be paying for this? Now, it's not designated specifically, but yet it did, because now we're taking the 562 and designate it to this loan. So you have to think. Then it's talking about that we didn't have to use this young lady at the UNC School of Government says you don't have to do this. Like I said, all you got to do is put it in writing that you don't want to do it. You don't want to follow that. He can say that it's about design services only, but I got news for you. When I read this, what it says right here, or construction, management at risk, that means building the building, not designing it. That's what it means to me. I don't know what it means to you. So I take issue with that. It's, when you see things like that going on, it upsets me. I'm here to protect you, your dollars, and to give you things. I want things too, but this is not the way it goes. Now, why do we choose a certain location? I have some serious questions about that. There's not even anything there yet. Why put that be first? And then it don't work out. And what are you stuck with? An elephant. The last meeting there was some discussion, and I will say this, and I had to when I made it, and I talked about the square footage, I was incorrect on some of them. I had my numbers, and most of the time, and if you go back and look at the presentation at the 1 hour and 3 minute mark, I clarified that. I also got Diane to give me an audio tape of it so I could go back and verify. That's what I like about this. It allows me to critique where I made errors. I make mistakes. But you know what? A lot of other people do too. But this is unforgiving. That's unforgiving. Well, it was said that I used the number 4132 for Bert T. Well, that happened to be Gates. I was using this off of my memory, but I went back and did this when it was challenged. Now, those people that would ask you that, how long have we been knowing about a library? For a year and about 5 months. Why did they want to go do some investigative looking then? Why didn't you do it early? I've been talking about this thing for a year and a half. Data is important, extremely important. So in this right here, it said Winton had 6,052 feet. I had 5,000. It said Northampton had 5,400. I had 6. Now they haven't added on to that since this was done in April. So they have added on. I also made the comment in here, and it reads that you got a Hosky, Murfreesboro, and Winton. They're town libraries, serving a different matrix of people, but serving the whole county too if they do. So let's compare apples to apples. Counties, there's only one. And that's immaterial anyhow because it's all about you can't change the population. You can change how much that is, but you can't change the population. So when you look at these things, when I went back and I got this and I saw I was wrong on the Winton Library, you know what I did? I went and got my 100-foot tape, and I went over that and I pulled that tape on the building. On the sides, it was 57 foot, but it had a column like this sitting on the outside of the building. It was 2 1/3 foot square. On the front, same thing at each corner, anchor in the corner, on the second. So I took the measurements, took off 5 foot on the front, 5 on the east and west. No, I took that back. I took off 2 1/3 foot on the front because the back was a flush wall. And I came up with just less than 5,100 square foot. Now, they had a carport there, and they also have the Albemarle Regional Library offices at the back of that. So I don't know what the right number is, but it's immaterial. But there again, the real thing is, why don't you do something up front rather than waiting to the end of the process? Don't make sense to me. Do it, why do we want to do that? So when you look at all of these things, I'm not out here to try to make it difficult. I'm out here to try to see that the taxpayers' money is being used wisely. And I don't think the process has been followed very well. Hopefully we will not make that mistake the second time around. But, I don't just sit behind this desk. I am a citizen and a taxpayer too. And as this thing says right here, and getting the biggest bang for your taxpayer's buck. That is my responsibility. And I appreciate those people taking the time to come to this forum, to hear this. It's unfortunate, but I have very strong convictions about seeing things done right and properly and cost effectively. I've dedicated my career to that, and I've been good at it. And we talk about this voter referendum. There are some people around the county who've seen the thing about the petition that are excited about this. They don't like the process. We want a library. We want a cost-effective library. As recently as last November in Forsyth County, they did this very thing, a bond referendum. And you can talk about the vehicle all you want to, but the bond referendum is just like a loan, no different, just a different vehicle name. That was for $40 million to build 3 libraries and refurbish another. Guess what happened? It passed by 56%. Passed. So therefore, in Gates County, it is a win-win situation to allow the people to do that. What are we afraid of? Everybody wins. Everybody. And there shouldn't be any problem selling it if it's such a good deal for everyone. Everybody ought to be on that. It ought to pass overwhelmingly. So I challenge anyone, you know. I'm going to be going around the county and talking about this thing. It's not going to go away. It's something that's out there that is, I feel very strongly was done improperly. I really like this deal. This would have been the smart way to go, to kill 2 birds with 1 stone right here. And everyone would have been proud. The people that don't like for it to leave Gatesville would be happy. And I can guarantee you most of the other taxpayers would too. It's all about the sale. So you're going to be hearing more about that. But Cal, I would like to sit down with you if you find it there on all of these issues. And as I said, I'd like to, if anyone has an organization you want to come hit me to come talk to you about it, I'll be glad to talk to you about it and tell you some ideas and put it on paper and show it to you. So I appreciate you being here. I wished a lot of other people had taken the time to stay, but it's extremely important. And I do want to think positive, but I want positive results. Thank you.
All right. Kenny?
Mine is short. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, I've got a couple of things here that I've got to, would like to read. I've got a thank you card from Miss Moody. She was the recipient of the last CDGB grant house. Henry and myself and Jack were there for the presentation of the keys, and she sent this card to the commissioners and the people of Gates County. Can't thank you enough for all you do, and most of all for just being you. And that was from Miss Moody. Also, I've got a letter here from from Brian Salter. It's inviting the Board of Commissioners to an invitation to participate on our annual Christmas parade in Gatesville on December the 10th, 2011 at 3 p.m. Last year it got rained out. And then I've got a letter here from a little girl that lives in the Gates District. I had a pleasure of meeting her mother last week. Her name is Savannah Fuller. It says, my name is Savannah Fuller. I attend Buckland Elementary in Gates County, North Carolina. I'm in 5th grade. I have successfully achieved and received awards in all my academic subjects. As a result of my academic achievements, I was recommended by my teacher and accepted to serve as a student ambassador for the National Organization of People to People. People to People is an educational exploration program founded by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Participation benefits students by opening their eyes to the world, can set them apart from college applications and help their consideration for awards and scholarships, and return the child who is more confident and eager to continue learning. I will be serving as a 5th grade ambassador for the Tidewater delegation. This delegation is to visit and learn about the countries of Australia and New Zealand. The student delegation will be meeting with other students from these countries and their classrooms to see how they learn, as well as sharing about living and learning in America. Also, our ambassadors will be meeting with Australian government and parliament. We will get to tour the Sydney Opera House. We will meet and learn with the Aboriginal people of Australia, tour and snorkel the Great Barrier Reef as an Australian government marine biologist, and stay on and work in working ranch in New Zealand. This is just a brief overview of my achievements and what we will be doing on our trip. Unfortunately, the tuition for this program is a high $7,000, which must be raised by May 2012, payable in monthly installments. Please help me participate in the exciting opportunity. In addition to having several fundraisers, I'm also looking for community sponsors, and any donation you can make world be greatly appreciated. As you know, education is the most important key to a child's future success in life. Sincerely, Miss Sandra Fuller. I met her mother in the bank in Hopville a week or so ago. She was bringing in a bucket full of change. She was going to start the first $400 for her daughter's trip. She said they were going to start doing some fundraisers, and I had her told her that if she would bring her cupcakes and cookies and jerky and stuff to my store, I would sell it for her and make sure she got the money for it. So anybody that happens to see her or interested in helping her with this trip, I would like y'all to contact me or her mother. I'm going to try to help her, see if we can't get this done. There's a chance for a 5-year-old to do something like this. If I had a chance as a grown man, I would love to do it. I think it's a great thing for something like this to happen. I believe that's all I've got today. The next thing we're going to need to do is we got a closed session. I need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
As we're going to be using General Statutes 143-318.11A6, which is a personnel issue. I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, gentlemen, that ends the meeting for today. We have nothing else on the agenda. Do I have a motion that we adjourn? Recess until the night meeting.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second to recess to the evening meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. All right, have a good day.